All right, here we go. Welcome to the Deeper Dive presented by SuperDraft. Dave Lochran with me, Adam Sher, and we've got a 9-game slate to discuss here. Well, Adam, we've got a lot to get into. We're yesterday officially christened March basketball.
Yeah,
And
that's more of that to come.
What's that?
I said probably more of that to come, unfortunately.
There's no doubt we've got more of that to come for sure. And here we are coming off of a night where Mike Budenholzer decided that, well, he doesn't need to play any starters. And even Dante DiVincenzo didn't get a single second on the floor. And the Denver Nuggets have been in such disarray that up until 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, that game was actually competitive.
Yeah, it was. Wesley Matthews somehow got like 32 minutes in that game. So I don't know if that means that like Budenholzer hates him or trusts him or what, but.
Well, we're glad to have everyone with us as always on this Tuesday evening. We'll jump right into it. But before we do, shout out our sponsor, SuperDraft here, superdraft.io, or you can download it in the App Store. If you haven't done it yet, you want to use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up, AWESEMO. It'll get you $20 in free super cash when signing up and depositing $100 or more. There's no salaries there. It's straight multiplier mode, which means that James Harden, Russell Westbrook, well, they get exactly what they score. If they score 60 each, they get 60 fantasy points. But if you had, say, a John Morant and he's 1.5x, he gets 1.5 times whatever he scores. So the strategy is interesting. It's complex, but once you get the hang of it, it's very easy because you're applying the same knowledge you have, the same research to sites like Draftkings and Fanduel, but you're doing it a little bit differently. So check that out today if you haven't done it yet. Awesemo is the promo code. $7,000 to first and tonight's $36,000 jump shot. $12 to enter. There is a 104 entry max. So jump over there, use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up. Go to superdraft.io or download it in the App Store. Get your $20 in free super cash when signing up and depositing $100 or more. It's SuperDraft, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. All right, man. So I'm going to let you run with a couple of these games since I want to make sure we get everything in. And we'll have no issues doing that, but there's just so much to talk about from an injury standpoint and so many different ugly turns this slate could take. We'll kick it off with Indy and Boston. The Pacers at home, slight dogs here, 3.5 point dogs, 214.5 total as well. That's the lowest on this slate. As far as injuries go, you're looking at not much. Jaylen Brown is out. We knew that would be the case. And then with the Pacers, Brogdon remains out, and we're still waiting on Victor Oladipo. What are we doing with the Pacers today in a low-scoring game, but also one where they're down a few players on the Pacers side?
Yeah, I think some guys from Indiana look mildly appealing here. You know, not the type of guy that I'm going to have in a ton of lineups or that would be the first into my single entry or anything, but guys that can kind of round out your lineup and potentially come at relatively low ownership because I think that they don't project as the most obvious plays. Domantas Sabonis coming off of a game where he played 41 minutes, and Brogdon's absence obviously opens up a lot of playing time for guys. So not projecting 41 again, but I think pretty reasonable to get 37, 38 minutes from Sabonis against Boston front court that, you know, it's a good team defensively, but it's not the best defensive team either. So it's a pretty, neutral spot, I think. Sabonis, certainly an option you could get to, a little bit more appealing on FanDuel at 8,500 than on DraftKings at 8,900. You have Aaron Holiday, who's inexpensive, probably playing around 32 minutes. Not going to be a high usage guy when he's playing alongside TJ Warren, Victor Oladipo, and Domantas Sabonis, but still pretty cheap, still can get some peripherals. So the minutes should at least be there for him. But overall, a team where I think if you're playing 150 lineups, kind of sprinkling in some Sabonis, Turner, Holiday, maybe a little bit of Warren makes sense, but nothing I'd go, overboard on.
So the entire Pacers team for you don't have one guy here that you would consider a priority is what you're saying?
No, I think all five of the starters, if they ended up in your lineup as like a last guy in, would be fine. But there's nobody that I would be actively looking to get to my lineup.
To be clear, Adam's not saying all five of them in the same lineup would be fine.
Correct.
What about with Boston? No Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum's been playing phenomenal basketball. A couple, down games against Utah and OKC, understandable there. His price, however, has come down. Now, this is also a night where you've got a couple games that really stand out. This as a whole is not one of them. And unlike Monday's slate and yesterday's slate, you have Westbrook above 10K, Bradley Beal, Luka Doncic, assuming he plays. You have James Harden, LeBron James. There's a lot at the top to discuss here, and that's not even including some of these guys north of $9,000. So is it possible to work a Jason Tatum, into lineups, or is it just unnecessary tonight?
I think it's pretty difficult to get there. He's basically at the same price point as Domantas Sabonis, and I'd give the slight edge to Sabonis, just because they both play huge minutes, but I think that Sabonis contributes across the board a little bit more than Tatum does. So I'd give him the edge if I'm going for a lower owned guy at that price point. Where I think Boston starts to get interesting is on FanDuel specifically, looking at $6,100 Gordon Hayward and $6,700 Kemba Walker. I think both pretty clearly underpriced. Hayward played about 37 and a half minutes last game. Kemba played a little over 30. So you're seeing Kemba's playing time creep up. You're seeing Hayward play big minutes with Jaylen Brown out. Both of their salaries on FanDuel, I think, are a lot cheaper than they should be, whereas on DraftKings, they look very similar to what we were just talking about on the Indiana side and Tatum, where clearly they're capable of having a good enough game to pay off that salary, but they don't project as top options.
So Kemba Walker is $7,200. He's played since returning from injury, 23 minutes in an overtime game. We knew he was going to play limited run. Just to drill into this a little bit more, against Utah in a close game, 27, and his last one out, he played 31 minutes. Is Kemba's price point cheap enough for you to get there, or is it? And I'll probably ask you this question a lot because there's just so much, especially at point guard. Some of these mid-range options and lower mid-range options stand out, especially given that some will get to have pretty low ownership given the slate. Is Kemba or anyone else in this backcourt doing anything for you?
On FanDuel, I have Kemba as a top 5 point guard. I have him behind 4 other guys, 2 of whom are cheaper, and then Westbrook and Luka. But I think that he's pretty easy to get to there. I have him in for 32 minutes since he played 31 last game. On DraftKings, it's a lot tougher because obviously you have more multi-position eligibility, so you're comparing him kind of across positions. But then also the salary there is more expensive as well, so a lot more difficult to get to on DraftKings.
Do you have anything else from Boston or from this game?
Nope.
So let's take a look moving forward at Washington and the New York Knicks. This is an interesting game. Right now, you've got the Washington Wizards favored by 4.5 at home, 228.5 total. We're waiting on Mitchell Robinson news for the Knicks. With the Wizards, you're without Ish Smith, and we're waiting on Jerome Robinson. Last game, and we can start with Beal here, and then let's start with the front court. We'll get to the big man, or we'll get to the main player from this spot from the Wizards, Bradley Beal, in a moment. When you look at the last game the Wizards played, Thomas Bryant, it was like he wanted to foul out of this game because every time he came in, he was just racking them up. He had 3 fouls in a 2.5-minute period in the second, comes back, picks up 2 more in the third, and then he returns in the fourth with about 4 minutes left, fouls out in 42 seconds. So he was on pace to play pretty. By the way, it's amazing he fouled out and didn't have a single foul in the first quarter. But I think you probably would put him around 24 minutes. At least I would. That's where I'm putting him, around 24 today. Is that enough at 3,900 against the Knicks tonight?
Yeah, that's where I have him too. The only issue that you would really run into is that he's only center eligible. So, obviously that can cause problems, but I'm with you. He played 24 minutes 2 games ago against Atlanta. They had said that his minutes were still limited, whatever that means, but he played 24 minutes. Then he, had the game against Miami where he was in foul trouble and ultimately fouled out. So I expect mid-20s here if he's not in foul trouble. More appealing for sure on DraftKings than on FanDuel. Sub 4K there. Center on FanDuel as well, but 4,700 makes it a lot more difficult to get to. But on DraftKings, definitely a value option that you can use.
Anything else in the front court before we get to Beal in the back court?
So I think there's a couple of moving parts with Washington here that on the surface maybe don't seem that important, but Jerome Robinson and Isak Bonga are both questionable. Robinson missed the last game. Bonga started in his place. Rui Hachimura has been awful the last couple of games, but he played a little over 30 minutes against Atlanta, played 39 minutes against Miami, scored 0 actual points in those 39 minutes, but which is pretty impressive. But you're getting minutes at center for Rui, and also you're obviously playing minutes at the 4. If Robinson and Bonga are both out, there's a lot of minutes here to be soaked up, and I think that it would just help to solidify Rui's minutes, into the mid 30s. So his price tag's pretty cheap. Not a core play, but someone that I think has some upside at his price point. Obviously, you expect him to start scoring again sooner rather than later.
All right, let's talk about Bradley Beal. Actually, I think you DM me this the other day. I had just been on the strategy show with Sal, and I was running over a million crazy stats that we've seen with Beal over the last month. Where is his usage? Is it second over the last month in basketball?
Since he came back from his injury, which was January 12th. So he's played 25 games since then. He using NBA.com's usage. Obviously, that's a stat that varies depending on what site you're looking at. But
dramatically,
he's first in the NBA with a 36.6% usage percentage, just ahead of Giannis, who is at 36.4%.
I'm surprised Westbrook wasn't above him, but he's got to be.
So it's Beal, Giannis, Luka, Westbrook, Young are the top 5.
Okay, how about that? Harden not in the top 5. I'm sure he rounds out. Yeah, rounds out the top 6 or 7. But all that being said, though, I go back to the same point we made just a minute ago. There's a lot at the top today. There's a game with a 248 over under, Adam. Is Beal a worthwhile play here looking at him against a poor Knicks team? But it is a pace down spot for Beal. I don't think that's too significant, but you're paying – now when it comes to Bradley Beal, you are paying – I won't even say a premium for him, but you're not getting that big discount like you were when he was playing lower minutes and we still didn't know what Scott Brooks was going to do with him. He's 9.9 on FanDuel, 10.2 on DraftKings.
Yeah, so I think that it's really interesting, and a lot of it depends on, obviously what format you're playing, because you mentioned all these guys at the top. You have Luka, who's questionable, but in a good matchup if he goes. You have Harden and Westbrook in a great, what should be a really high-scoring game. Westbrook in particular on DraftKings only is $100 less expensive than Beal. Clearly, Westbrook projects better than Beal does. Right now, we also have Westbrook as the second highest owned player on the slate, while Bradley Beal's projected for 4% ownership. When you just talk in terms of ceiling, Beal is in the same ballpark as Westbrook. I mean, the guy's shooting, he has more than 20 field goal attempts in every game since January 30th. He's getting to the line more. He's driving more. He's playing big minutes in the same range as Westbrook. So he very easily in a one-game sample can beat Westbrook. And I don't think he should be, if you're just comparing the two. And obviously this is something that it matters in the context of your lineup more than just comparing two players. But he shouldn't be 1/6 the ownership of Westbrook when you're just talking about range of outcomes. So I think that's where Beal becomes interesting. Obviously, when you're talking cash lineups, you would just go to Westbrook there. You would, if you have the money, go to guys like Luka or Harden as well. But in tournaments, I think it makes Beal a really interesting option if he stays that low.
Okay, so let's round out the rest of the Washington Wizards here. By the way, John Wall scrimmaging in the G League. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's video from like months ago of him just like throwing down windmill dunks in practice too.
I can't imagine they'd bring him back for a month.
You wouldn't think.
What's that?
I wouldn't think so.
I mean, it's the Wizards, but I think even
they might push for that 8 seed.
Exactly. Any thoughts on Shabazz Napier? 40 minutes last game in that loss to the Miami Heat.
Yeah, he's another
51
one.
51 fantasy points too, by the way.
What did you say?
I said 51.5 DraftKings points.
Yeah, of course I was like a day or two early on that one. But yeah, I think that my level of interest in him depends again on that Robinson news that doesn't seem that important, but really is, because if Robinson is out, that's 30 plus minutes that leaves the lineup. If Bonga's out too, that's a ton of minutes that need to be, given to other players. So I would expect that normally you're going to get 30 to 32 minutes from Napier, but if both of those guys are out, it does open up more minutes. And, obviously Troy Brown would be the main beneficiary. Garrison Matthews would get more run.
Isak Bonga ruled out.
Perfect.
Pasechnik's
or Robinson.
Sneaks is available. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So even Bonga being out though, that at the very least, helps to solidify those minutes to where I would expect 30 to 32 from Napier if we get news probably in the next couple of minutes. But if we get news that Jerome Robinson is out, then I would bump Napier up to like 36.
So he's a game time decision.
Of course he is.
Of course, right?
Yeah. So either way, Napier I think goes from a viable, mid-range point guard option. It's obviously hard to prioritize him with all the guards we have on this slate. To if Robinson is also out, the few extra minutes definitely would at least push him towards the top of those mid-range options.
Yeah, I mean, and Robinson played 36 minutes last game he was in, so
right.
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
God, I can't look at that headshot.
With Bonga being out, so if you assume Robinson's in and Bonga's out, I think it at least solidifies that 30 to 32 minutes for Napier. I think that you can have Garrison Matthews basically play Bonga's 16 to 18 minutes, and Robinson, still gets north of his 30. You get mid-20s from Brown. If Robinson's out too, though, you get huge minutes from Troy Brown. You get Matthews playing big, or playing around probably 20, 22, and then you get Napier, I think, locked into that 34 to 36 range.
All right, let's talk about the New York Knicks. RJ Barrett has been a roller coaster ride of production all season long, more downs than ups, but once in a while he'll spring up with a big game, and his price is discounted coming up against the Wizards, who, to be fair to Washington, their defense has been better over the last month. As a matter of fact, they're 11th in the league in defensive rating over the last month, but they're still playing at a top 5 pace. And if you run it back on the season, they're still one of the worst defenses in the league. But if you have RJ Barrett, $5,400 on DraftKings, on FanDuel, he's $5K flat. And then somebody like Elfrid Payton, who you would assume in a competitive game, he probably plays, or you would think he plays 30 plus minutes. I have him in at 31 today. He's the type of guy that has legitimate triple-double upside. He's not, somebody like Luka or, you name a few players that routinely are flirting with big triple-doubles, but he does have that 15, 10, and 10 upside. He's $6,300 on DraftKings, which is pretty affordable, $6,200 on FanDuel. And the thing that stood out to me, I want your opinion on this because I think it's pretty important, especially going up against the Wizards, is currently ownership right now on Elfrid Payton on DraftKings is coming in at 10%, while Julius Randle, and feel free to hit on both of these guys, is coming in at only 11% in what is very much an appealing pace-up spot against a bad Washington defense.
Yeah, so I think that for Payton, 10% is probably about where I would come in too. I haven't crunched my lineups yet, but just kind of looking at how he projects relative to some other guys, because the guard position is so deep, it's tough to be allocating tons of exposure to him. But I do think it's a high upside option. I like that the salary has finally come back down. I felt like for a while he was overpriced on DraftKings, and it was just one of those where he could still pay it off, but I'm never going to be getting him in lineups. Now it's easier to get to him. Randall's the one that I'm really interested in, though, because his salary is pretty affordable as well. He's a forward, obviously, so not quite as much opportunity cost at the position today. And it's a really good matchup against this Washington front court. In the games he's played with Barrett and Payton active and with Marcus Morris not active, 29.6% usage rate for Randall, 17.9% rebounding percentage, just shy of a 13% assist percentage. I expect 32 to 33 minutes here as well. So I think that he projects really well, and it's surprising to me that he's only projected for 11% ownership.
Victor Oladipo will play. By the way, Jerome Robinson is a game time decision now. But I was surprised by the Julius Randle ownership as well, because mid 7K price point on him is more than reasonable. He's $7,300 on FanDuel too. He's my favorite player from the New York Knicks today. What if Mitchell Robinson sits?
If Robinson sits, I think that you could give a couple more minutes to Randle potentially. Also more run for Portis would be my expectation. Last time we got Gibson still basically playing those placeholder starter minutes, and then Portis getting all the run behind them. So I think that it would make Portis a good value.
Okay. Anything else from this one, from the Knicks?
Barrett's cheap, but again, there's just so many guards, saying anything other than it's very possible he has a good game against the Wizards is, it's not like I can say that I'm playing in front of him.
Yep. Fair point. All right. We move on to Houston and Minnesota. wild game. One of the higher totals you'll see all season long right now. And it's obviously the highest on the slate by a pretty wide margin. It's sitting at 247.5. Matter of fact, it's 15 points higher than the next highest total. The Rockets are 12.5-point favorites. Adam, they have a 130-point implied total today. Minnesota's at 117.5. You and I had a discussion about this off the stream, off air, a couple of nights ago, just kind of discussing how Houston's fine, but bad games for Houston are going to look really bad. And we've seen that losses to Orlando, losses to Charlotte, the Clippers. Sure, it's the Clippers, but they shot like 16% from three. They lost to the New York Knicks. So they've now lost 4 consecutive games in which their 3-point shooting has fallen through the floor. They still have a monster total. They still have the personnel to get it done against a bad Minnesota team that also plays at a pace up at an elevated pace. But you can't really look at it and say, well, they've played poorly, we got to stay away from them. You just have to hope that they snap out of it today. And hopefully, even if they don't, Russell Westbrook will still be getting buckets in the paint and at the rim.
Right. It's not. Yeah, it's like you said. I don't think that their poor performances have anything to do with them or are indicative of what to expect of them going forward. Just like when they were shooting the lights out from three, they weren't actually the best team in the NBA suddenly. Right. They're a flawed team that knows they're flawed and is playing a high variance style of play to hopefully get lucky in the playoffs. And that's going to lead to some really ugly games because if they're not knocking down threes, they're capable of losing to anybody. If they are making their threes, they can beat anybody. So the thing that really stands out here is that Minnesota is not good defensively, and also that Minnesota plays at a fast pace. So at the very least, you're getting up more threes and you're getting more opportunities. So if they do still shoot at an inefficient rate, you're still getting a few more buckets there, which is nice. I think that Westbrook stands out as one of the top plays on the slate. He's only 10-1 on DraftKings. We've talked about it before that he's in a better situation with the way that Houston's playing right now than he has been for most of the season. So even though James Harden is active, I expect on average the usage for these guys to be pretty similar. And I think that when you get a big gap in salary between the two, it makes Westbrook look really good. On FanDuel, the salaries are a little bit closer together. I have Harden slightly ahead of Westbrook, where you have that $700 price difference, but both look like top options on the slate, where they should obviously get a lot of possessions and should dominate usage for this team.
Does are there any ramifications of Eric Gordon and or Ben McLemore being out?
If they're both out, I think you could get a few extra minutes for Jeff Green, who for a while had just been the backup to PJ Tucker. Now he's been playing more minutes alongside Tucker. So I think that you could get a couple more minutes there if they're both out. I do expect at least one of them to play, though, because they sent Chris Clemens back to the G League. The Rockets guys have all been suggesting that at least one of them should be active.
And from a fantasy perspective, Jeff Green's played quite well.
Yeah, and it's obviously a favorable matchup. Getting up to 4K on DraftKings makes it a little bit tougher if Gordon's in. If Gordon and McLemore are both out and you can project like 26 minutes for Green again, then it starts to become at least somewhat appealing in large field tournaments.
Yeah, and we've seen, Daniel House is playing nowhere near the big minutes he was before. So there should be some minutes there for Jeff Green, especially if both of them are sidelined. Anything else for the Rockets?
Yeah, I think that Covington on DraftKings looks really good. Small forward, power forward eligibility, only 6,200, leading the team in rebounding percentage since he came over, just over 14%. Obviously a low usage guy, but going to be taking some threes and plays pretty big minutes in competitive games. So I think Covington looks like a good option.
So on the other side of this game, you've got D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley, both of whom have been pretty high volume shooters. Beasley is 23% usage rate over the last couple of weeks, 1.05 fantasy points per minute. But he is playing very significant minutes and more than D'Angelo Russell consistently, as a matter of fact. Let's start with Beasley here. Get your opinion on him. He's $6,200 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you've got him coming in at where's Beasley at?
57.
57. Okay,
keep
thanks.
Scrolling down.
What's up?
I said keep scrolling down.
Yeah. No, I searched him, but I accidentally had another game selected. So 57, 62. He's getting a lot of run. Usage isn't through the roof, but in a spot like this where, first of all, Minnesota's playing at the league's fastest pace over the last month. Rockets are still top 10, a 247.5 total. Like, can you get to Beasley at a mid-range price point and forego like $8,500 D'Angelo Russell? Because granted, Beasley's not a big peripheral guy. He's not going to give you 8 rebounds and 9 assists each day, but he could come out there and rip off 30 points in a spot like this. What do you make of Beasley?
I think it's a lot easier to get there on FanDuel since you have to roster 2 shooting guards and you don't have multi-position eligibility. I have him factoring in salary right now as my 5th shooting guard, but as the top, I guess for lack of a better word, value shooting guard. Like the only guys ahead of him are Harden, Booker, Beal, and Russell for me. So if you're going to that price range, Beasley really stands out. Should play big minutes, like you said, should get tons of possessions, and has about a 24% usage rate in the games that he's played with D'Angelo Russell. So that all looks good. On DraftKings, it's tougher because while in a vacuum, I don't think either of Beasley or Russell are overpriced for a game that should be as high scoring as this one and the number of possessions they should have. You're still just talking about kind of a logjam of guards in every price range that you can get to. So they would still be guys that get into my lineups if I'm playing 150 lineups, but I wouldn't get nearly as much exposure to Beasley on DraftKings as I would on FanDuel.
Talk to me about Russell and the rest of this Timberwolves team.
Yeah, I mean, the same as I said for Beasley goes for Russell too. I think it's easier to get to Beasley on FanDuel than it is to get to Russell because Russell is priced up into that range of guys like Devin Booker. But still, because of the positional requirements and his shooting guard eligibility, he's more valuable on FanDuel than DraftKings. Those are pretty much the only 2 guys that I'm interested in from Minnesota, though. You know, you look to the front court, and the prices have started to come up on everyone. Naz Reid's usage in the games he's played with Beasley and Russell is at 20.4%, as opposed to being a mid-20s guy when he was coming off the bench earlier in the season. James Johnson potentially could have a sizable role in this matchup, but his salary's come up as well. So the backcourt's really the only spot of Minnesota that I'm particularly interested in.
Okay. So nothing else really that stands out. Is it price point, just not appealing? Matchup? What is it?
Yeah, it's just that the minutes aren't as big for the front court guys. Like Naz Reid's typically playing around 26 minutes. You're going to probably get around 24 minutes from James Johnson, around 29 or 30 from Hernan Gomez. You know, whereas Russell and Beasley, you're looking at 33, 34, 35 minutes from those guys. And I think with the pricing where it is, it makes a pretty big difference.
Okay. Let's move on here. Before we do, deeper dive, one word, is what you need to use if you want to get 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum subscription at awesemo.com/join. Deeper dive, all one word. It gets you ownership projections, player projections, the boom bust tool. With baseball coming up, you don't want to miss out on that. Ownership and projections. The greatest thing that we have for baseball too is the top stacks tool, designed or developed and used every day by our own Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. All of these tools, the lineup builder, the fantasy cruncher add-on. We've got content free and premium for basketball, baseball, hockey, XFL, PGA, soccer, MMA, NASCAR, and anything that has DFS contests. We have content. So check it out at awesemo.com/join. And if you scroll to the bottom of that page, you can see everything. Well, you can see videos and kind of tutorials on what we have to offer and how to use them and what they're there for on our most popular tools before you dive in, to make it a bit easier. You know what you're getting before you do so. So use that promo code deeper dive, one word, get you 50% off your first week of the all access platinum pass at awesemo.com, and say what's up in the premium Slack chat when you do. Got guys talking DFS, guys and girls talking DFS all day and night. All right, let's keep it going with Chicago and Cleveland. So just riddled with injuries, Adam. You know, there's a lot here, from Kevin Porter and Thompson and Garland and Exum to Levine, and I'm not sure Ryan Arcidiacono's status, but man, there's a lot of moving parts. Well, actually, there aren't that many moving parts because most of the significant players have already been ruled out.
Yeah, it's kind of just more of the same. Like you don't have Porter. Dean Wade is out. So that's, just another body that isn't going to be there. Tristan Thompson's out. You still have Garland out. So it's just more of the same. You should get huge minutes for these guys. It's not a bad matchup against Chicago. Andre Drummond really stands out. He played 33 minutes, including overtime last game. Tristan Thompson played the first half, didn't play the second half. But Drummond got in foul trouble really, really early in the second half, which cost him basically the entire third quarter. In the game he played earlier this year without Thompson against Indiana, he played 36 minutes. And because we've seen Cleveland, just running guys into the ground, I don't think there's any reason to think that you don't get big minutes from Drummond. So if you're getting 34 to 36 minutes from him, it's, I think, one of the better plays on the slate. I think that he's still a bit underpriced for the minutes in the matchup here against the Chicago front court. So he looks like a clear priority. Beyond that, you should still get mid-30s in minutes from Kevin Love, Larry Nance. Colin Sexton should probably push 38 to 40 minutes. Those guys all have started to become priced up to where they're not priorities for me, but they certainly still have appeal. Matthew Dellavedova's price tag jumped. I still expect 32 to 34 minutes from him. He's a low usage guy that's been running really good in assists, so I'm not really excited about him, but certainly at least worth a mention.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on White now that he's starting? His price is coming up, but you're seeing a lot of minutes, 35 plus minutes now in 3 straight games, Adam, all of which were competitive. This one should stay close. JB Bickerstaff inking a multi-year deal there to stay in Cleveland. And the Cavaliers are actually playing, a quality enough brand of basketball recently, despite the season being lost. So I think this game stays close. I like what I've seen from Kobe White. I know the mid-range, both of us have said said this multiple times already, but the mid-range is pretty loaded with guards. Where does Kobe White fall into that for you?
Yeah, I think I don't really expect much to change with him starting. Like, he's already been playing so many minutes and taking so much of the usage that I expect kind of more of the same. The salary getting up there is the biggest issue. It's not that I don't think he has upside at his price point, but it just starts to become tough when you talk about it from a roster construction standpoint. Like, you have obviously all these guards at the top, but then you have some guys that are cheaper, like it's Shaq Harrison on his team, like Shabazz Napier, especially if Robinson's out, that kind of give you that mid-range upside for a little bit less. Also, now he's in the same price range as Spencer Dinwiddie and Colin Sexton and John Morant and all these guys, where now before it was kind of like you're getting, a 30% usage guy at a price point where it's really, really tough to find. Now you're just kind of getting more of the same. It's still obviously a good matchup for him against Cleveland. I still think he's a good play, and I would put him ahead of guys like Dinwiddie and Sexton by a little bit, but it's not the same play that it was, a week or two ago.
Okay. Yeah, it's not. I do think you can give him pretty comfortably 35 minutes, which is kind of nice. But yeah, I don't know. I think I like Kobe White a little bit more than you do. I wouldn't consider him a top option just because we have such a wealth of options here, but I do like him. And I like knowing that he's going to come out there and jack up 20 shots in pretty much every game. So the shot volume is always going to be there with Kobe White. And in terms of a playmaker, he's actually been providing decent numbers there. So the peripherals aren't great, but I do think points and assists are what's going to get you there with somebody like Kobe White. Another 45 fantasy point game, I think, is definitely in the cards, a real possibility. I just don't know where his ceiling is right now. What are you doing with it with the rest of the Bulls with Zach LaVine remaining sidelined today?
I think that they start to get kind of dicey. Shaq Harrison's projected for a ton of ownership, and he's only 45 or 4,600 on FanDuel, which obviously is too cheap. 5K on DraftKings, he still projects well. The point that I would make, though, is that I think there's enough different value guys and mid-range guys that Harrison probably shouldn't come in at that much ownership. The more minutes that guys like Kobe White, Otto Porter, Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter, the more minutes that even Denzel Valentine, the more minutes these guys play, you should see usage from Harrison starting to disappear. You should also see peripherals going away, at least to some extent, as Carter starts to get, Carter's a better rebounder than Daniel Gafford, for example. So I'm a little concerned about Harrison's rising price tag, given that the ownership isn't really falling off of him. If Arcidiacono is out, it does help to at least solidify his minutes. And again, it's not that I think he's a bad play. I just think that relative to other plays, I think he's a little bit overowned right now. So he's someone where, especially on DraftKings, I'd probably be looking to pivot to some other guys.
Okay. Somebody mentioned he's $4,900 on FanDuel. Are there any FanDuel specific plays from this game or specifically from Chicago that stand out to you? Just knowing that their pricing's been really all over the map, especially recently.
Yeah, I think I misspoke. He's 49. I was thinking he was 46, but
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even hear you say that earlier. I was just following up on what somebody said. Otto Porter is the same price, coming off a pretty big game too.
yeah, Porter is someone I think you can use as a pivot to him. The problem you run into on FanDuel, even though the price tag is really appealing, is that he's a point guard. So while in terms of value, I have Harrison as one of the top point guards, it means that you're giving up, Westbrook or White or Luca or Walker or any of these guys that are also underpriced, and you're doing it for Shaquille Harrison. So again, it's a good play. I don't know that it's quite as good as his ownership suggests that it is.
Want to wrap this game up?
Yeah, I'll add Wendell Carter. He played about 28 minutes last game. Boylan had said that he was going to be about back to normal. You would expect him to play as many minutes as he can because Andre Drummond's going to go absolutely nuts against anyone else that they throw out there. So I would expect 29, 30 minutes from him. He's only 3,900 on FanDuel. He's 4,600, I believe it is.
Yeah, you're right, 46.
Yeah. So he looks like a pretty good value to me.
Man, he's been rough since returning from injury.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's a tough matchup as far as he's going up against a very good rebounder in Drummond, and he very easily could get in foul trouble as well. But for what it's worth, he had some success when Drummond was with Detroit in these matchups. So not saying that means he's going to have success today, but at least it's not like a situation where every time he's faced Drummond, he's just gotten absolutely bodied or something like that.
I've got to ask you one more though. Lauri Markkanen's 4,700 on DraftKings. The only reason I would even bring this up is because you've seen his minutes since returning in 3 games go from 21 to 22 to 26. I think 28 minutes is probably realistic here. He has not had a particularly impressive season, especially after the impressive campaign we saw last year. Is Markkanen cheap enough to where you can actually see some viability here?
Yes and no. He's cheap enough where I think there's viability, and that I think if you're playing a bunch of lineups, it's fine. But even just looking at this team, I would and factoring in price, I would rather roster Kobe White. I'd rather roster Shaq. I'd rather roster Wendell Carter, and I'd rather roster Otto Porter because I expect Porter to play in the same minutes range as Markkanen as well.
Let's keep it going here. 4 down, 5 to go. A few of these games are a lot less appealing than others, but we still got some good ones left. The Spurs and Dallas Mavericks. Mavs 3.5-point road favorites here against San Antonio. We've got to start, however, with the Spurs. 227.5 total, by the way. So here's what we've got working for us, Adam. DeJounte Murray's out. Lonnie Walker's out. LaMarcus Aldridge makes his return after a semi-hiatus here. The last game Aldridge played was the 23rd of February. Short month, of course, but I don't think he's going to be limited here unless you've seen something to the contrary. Not saying he plays 38, but I think you could still get your 35 or so from Aldridge coming off a shoulder injury. He's been out plenty of time. But let's work our way from the backcourt then up. Derek White getting, sometimes it'll change, but Derek White exclusively getting the backup point guard minutes last time behind Murray. Do you have him playing 30 plus tonight? Or is this a scenario where you could see Greg Popovich just mix and matching with all of these kind of faceless guards that are on the San Antonio Spurs?
I have him at 30 minutes. I also could easily see Pop mixing and matching. The one thing that I think does help to solidify those minutes is that not only is Murray out, but Lonnie Walker also out. Bellinelli back, of course. Like, if Pop doesn't want to play Derek White, he won't have to here, but he typically plays pretty well, and you had seen his minutes kind of trending up anyway. So going to about 30 minutes for him, I think is fine. 4,600 is, I think, about where he should be priced here. With Aldridge back, that's 2 high usage guys still in the starting lineup. So it makes me a little bit less interested in White now than I was this morning when I did the show. But, I do expect around 30 minutes for him.
Okay. So you take Murray out of the lineup, and obviously his minutes have been so erratic all season long, but you've seen him settle into at least 25 plus minutes per game, Adam. And recently he's been not a particularly high usage guy, but he's been very much involved. Quality rebounder, solid enough playmaker, averaging 16 field goal attempts per game over his last 3. So with him out of the lineup, how do you see it affecting not just Derek White, but the rest of this team? And do you think there's enough of a void left behind by DeJounte Murray to really affect the rest of the team, not just from a playing time perspective, but from a usage and rebounding standpoint too?
I think that Aldridge coming back makes it so, whereas there were guys this morning that I thought I was going to be really high on, now they're just more of like lineup filler for me. When you talk about someone like Patty Mills at 3,100, it's clearly a good point per dollar projection if you're getting him up to like 24 minutes. For the season, he's averaged 0.81 DraftKings points per minute. He's basically the minimum salary. So it's a good point per dollar projection, but I think the upside becomes a little bit lower when you're talking about still having 2 high usage guys in the lineup with Aldridge and DeRozan. So I'm a little bit less interested in him. Same goes for Bryn Forbes, who I think picks up a couple extra minutes, but you're still talking about a low usage guy in Forbes and basically needing him to shoot well for you to really be happy if you rostered him. So with Aldridge coming back, I think my focus basically is on DeRozan and Aldridge. Whereas if he were still out, there would be more usage for guys like White, Mills, Forbes, and then obviously guys like Lyles and Gay. So it kind of forces everyone that isn't DeRozan and Aldridge into being a secondary option for me, I think.
Okay. And that's pretty much that's your entire take on the Spurs, not just the backcourt here.
Yeah, that's on everything. Obviously, the front court's affected more by Aldridge because you're taking a couple minutes, or you're taking a few minutes away from Lyles, probably a couple minutes off of Gay as well. And then they're also losing some usage.
Rano asks, what would your groups be for the Spurs?
Probably wouldn't want more than 2 of White, Forbes, and Mills.
Okay.
Probably wouldn't want more than 1 of Lyles or Gay.
Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic coming into this game with a questionable tag. He's got a sprained right wrist. It's not the thumb, it's the wrist. It's not the illness, it's the wrist. So something new springing up in Dallas with Luka Doncic. You think? I mean, I'm assuming you have him in.
Yeah, I have him in for now.
What are you doing with the Dallas Mavericks today?
All right. So one thing, just if you're playing DraftKings or any late swap site, the 2 7:00 games, they obviously have some plays, but there's definitely some merit if we don't have Dallas news to just waiting and making your lineup once we have Luka news, because if he's out, it obviously changes the entire slate. But assuming he's in, he clearly looks like a good option against a really weak San Antonio defense. You have had Luka playing bigger minutes recently as well. Dallas a bit shorthanded without Jalen Brunson and Seth Curry. So he looks like a strong option. The problem you run into is that he's $1,000 more expensive than Westbrook, who I think actually projects similarly. He's only $200 less on DraftKings than James Harden, who projects a little bit higher for me. So among those guys, I still would have him behind the Rockets, but still a very, very strong play in a good spot.
Okay. Do you have anything else from Dallas? And by the way, just to point this out for anyone that's not up on the news, Seth Curry is out. So Doncic's questionable. Seth Curry's out. Cauley-Stein's out. And Dorian Finney-Smith is questionable himself. So these are not guys that get you excited by any stretch. But at the same time, Finney-Smith was playing 30-plus minutes a game. His absence from the rotation is going to free things up. The problem is the guys that it frees things up for, I don't know, would it be like Justin Jackson, presumably? I'm guessing.
Justin Jackson, Courtney Lee.
And yeah, exactly. Justin Jackson, Courtney Lee. Jackson is $3,200 though, Adam. Carlisle has been willing to give him minutes in certain spots on the season. He's not a great per minute guy, but he's almost minimum salary. If DFS is out, could you get there?
If DFS is out and Luka is in, then no. If they're both out, you're getting Dallas they're starting to be really shorthanded. And then I could see getting to some Jackson.
I could see getting to a lot of Jackson if Luka's also out, just from a usage standpoint alone. What else for Dallas?
Porzingis is, I think, a reasonable option if Luka's in, but he's someone where again, on the late swap sites, he's someone that if you do get news after the 7 o'clock lock that Luka's not going to play, getting to as much Porzingis as you possibly can would be a good way to go, because he's already playing better even when he plays with Luka, but he's playing really big minutes right now as well. Pretty consistently playing 36 plus minutes in competitive games. You don't have Cauley Stein here. You might not have Finney Smith. You don't have Curry. So the minutes are there. Usage has been up even in games that Luka has played. So he's a solid contrarian option if Luka's in, but becomes a priority if Luka sits.
Anything else for the Mavs?
No.
Memphis, Orlando. Man, this has been a strange Grizzlies team recently. I'm not necessarily sure what to make of them in all seriousness. They got smoked by Dallas in Dallas, but outside of that, they've been routing opposing teams. I've mentioned it. Like Brooklyn, Atlanta, Lakers held them all to 88 or fewer points. Hosted the Atlanta Hawks, beat them up by 17. It was really only that one game recently where they've struggled. And then if you bring it back a little bit further, they got beat up by a few good teams as well. But they haven't really been struggling much without Jaren Jackson, without Brandon Clark, both of who remain sidelined. What are we doing with the Grizzlies in what I've found to be a very unappealing matchup against Orlando all season long?
I think that the pricing is finally caught up to Memphis, pretty much to where it should be. On FanDuel, there's still obviously, like there's with most teams, some breathing room, especially for guys like Morant and Valanciunas. But DraftKings, they've bumped Valanciunas up to 8,200, Jaws at 7,100. On one hand, you've seen minutes down a little bit for Memphis recently because they've just been involved in a lot of blowouts one way or the other. And you should expect 30 to 32 minutes from Valanciunas here with Clark and Jackson out in a matchup against another traditional center in Vooch. But now that he's up to 8,200, it's still really tough to get there against a really slow Orlando team. Morant is pretty tough to get to as well, just because it's a pace down spot for Memphis. There's a million guard options, even in this price range, like we talked about, having Sexton there, having Dinwiddie, having Kobe White there. It's really tough to get to Morant. And then Brooks is someone that I've talked up a lot just because he shoots so much. He's not very good, but he gets the opportunities. And his minutes have been down due to blowouts, but also with Anthony Tolliver joining the team, you've seen Brooks potentially lose a few minutes anyway, just kind of as a trickle-down effect of Tolliver getting 16 to 18 minutes. So if you're talking around 30 minutes from Brooks, even if the game's competitive, he's a lot less appealing than he was back when he was getting 35, 36 minutes.
So we just got an ownership update literally 20 seconds ago. Right now, your highest owned or highest projected owned player in this game alone is 6.2%, Adam. That's Nikola Vucevic. John Morant second at 5.3. So nobody above 6% on DraftKings. On FanDuel, a little bit different. You've got a $7,000 Aaron Gordon coming in at 15.5%, Vooch at 13.6. So you're seeing a disparity between sites, but man, nothing on DraftKings.
I think it makes sense. If I'm just looking,
I do too.
Yeah. It's not to say that there aren't guys that can do well in this game, but I think the pricing in this game is very efficient.
Are you interested in Aaron Gordon, in Vooch, specifically on FanDuel?
Yes, but I would still have like Vooch, for example, I have behind Drummond. I have behind, when you talk about, when you factor in price, I have him behind Wendell Carter as well. So I have him as my third center on FanDuel right now.
The NHL Live blog, Awesemo's NBA rankings, and the PGA Above the Cut article are all free on the site today. Be sure to check that out, especially if you're prepping for PGA. You're getting a little bit of NHL action. The NHL Live blog, Awesemo's NBA rankings, and the Above the Cut article. I believe that's Ben Ross's. I read it every week. I just can't remember if it's the right name. It's an awesome article, super in depth, and gets you in a really good spot heading into Thursday morning. All that free at awesemo.com. All right, 3 to go. You ready?
So a little bit of possible Doncic news. Nothing official, but he came out earlier than normal for warmups, according to one of the Mavs beat writers. Didn't stay out for very long. Watching a video of him shoot, he looks like shit. So I don't know. Take that for what it's worth.
Huh? An early test. All right.
Like he's making his shots. His shot just looks weird.
So we'll continue to monitor it. Portland and Phoenix Suns. Portland 4.5-point favorites here at home. Right now, that's 232.5 total, second highest on this slate. I think there's quite a bit to talk about here. Now, you mentioned that prices caught up with some of the Memphis players. How do you feel about the pricing on these Portland players against Phoenix? Lillard 91, McCollum's up to 7,900, Melo 56, Whiteside still above 9K on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Whiteside's 9,500, Lillard 9,200, McCollum 74. These prices, save for Lillard, and I know Whiteside's been fantastic, but on such a deep slate, are you willing to get there?
Lillard's price, I think, is really interesting, especially on DraftKings at 9,100, because we've had so many situations where we've said, the price is finally coming up to where this guy that has been a great play is now not quite as appealing. Lillard's going the opposite direction. He's coming down, and the minutes are there. The matchup's fine. The only real negative is that there are so many guards, and he's only $1,000 less expensive than Westbrook, for example, who I very easily prefer. But I think that Lillard, relative to the other guard options, looks pretty good. I think better than I normally think that he does. So I think better actually on DraftKings than FanDuel. Whiteside's salary looks fine as well. The issue you run into is that he's more expensive than Drummond. You have value there in Carter and in Bryant. So I think tough to prioritize him, but I think that it's still a pretty decent spot, and he still has a high ceiling. He's still playing big minutes.
Okay. When you're looking at the Phoenix Suns, DeAndre Ayton, first of all, is it looks like I would think he'll play. He did go through shoot around. Isn't it nice when we get shoot around information? Sometimes it happens, and then other times it's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, it seems like since the NBA's injury reporting has gotten better, shoot around information has become like non-existent.
It's really hard to find it, man. Which is just strange given that you have people whose jobs are to follow these teams.
Yeah. And then today we also got that Steph Curry went through shoot around and has since been ruled out. So
yes, exactly. Yeah. But I was going to wait, but sure. Stephen Curry is out. Not Seth. He's out too. Both of them out. Let me ask you this. If Ayton is out again, Aaron Baines has been stupendous in 2 games. Can you get there against the Portland team that defensively has really, really struggled and is definitively one of the least impressive defensive teams in the league?
Yeah, for sure. If Ayton is out, I mean, you're getting big minutes from Baines, and he should still be able to produce here. I'm assuming Baines is in, and that's how I'm building my lineups if we don't get news, since he did go through shoot around. But if he's out, yeah, I think Baines looks good.
Booker, Rubio, what are we doing with the rest of this team?
So they lose, assuming Ayton's in again, they lose a little bit because Ayton is a higher usage player than Baines is. But
not this new form of Aaron Baines.
True. But I think that Booker still looks solid. He's still affordable. He's playing huge minutes. Portland is a train wreck defensively. And, even with Ayton being a 25% usage guy, you're still playing without Oubre. So that's still a little bit of a bump for Booker. It would have a bigger impact on Rubio, whose salary is coming up. He's coming off of a 70 fantasy point game, but the usage should take a little bit of a hit if Ayton is in. So I'd have a harder time getting to Rubio than I would to Booker.
Okay, so close out this game, Phoenix and Portland. It seems to me like, despite the total, despite there should be competitive nature here of this spot, it feels like a game that you don't have as much interest in as maybe you thought you would.
Yeah, I think it's a game where there's gonna be a lot of points. It's just that you're paying for those points. So I think Booker looks like a good play. I think Ayton, if he's not on a minutes limit, is a good option, but I would still put him behind someone like Andre Drummond. From the other side, I think Lillard's salary looks good. Whiteside looks fine. But when you get to even though you're getting a lot of minutes from the other players, they're all kind of priced up now, whether it's McCollum or, Bridges, Saric, all these guys are starting to be more priced up.
Let's talk about the Golden State Warriors and the Clippers. We've got 2 to go here. And by the way, we say it each night, but we appreciate you guys making this part of your routine, tuning into the Deeper Dive, Live Before Lock, everything we've got here on the channel, on YouTube. If you enjoy the show, you want to help support us, hit that thumbs up, like the video. It does a ton for us, and it's greatly appreciated. We got almost 2,300 people watching, so boost those numbers a bit, fellas. We're very grateful. Golden State and the LA Clippers. No Steph Curry, no Draymond Green. Hey, this, barring just some very unforeseen circumstances, this feels like a game that gets out of control incredibly quick. Kai Bowman also out. I mean, just go ahead. They're huge double-digit dogs without their two best players.
Yeah, I mean, I think Marquise Chris looks like the most appealing option from Golden State. He's affordable. He's greater than 1 fantasy point per minute player. The problem is that right now he's also projected to be the highest owned player on DraftKings. I get a little bit nervous when you're talking about a center position that's pretty deep, and you're talking about a player as volatile as Chris is in a really tough spot against the Clippers. But I still think that if you're expecting around 30 or 32 minutes from him at 6K, he looks good. Wiggins is pretty cheap, but it doesn't strike me as the matchup where he should have much success, especially without Curry out there to draw defensive attention. So Chris, and then if you want to get to some Toscano Anderson at 3,500 on DraftKings is a value, go for it.
It's a disgraceful performance from Wiggins with Curry out against the Sixers. It was Toscano Anderson and Michael Mulder putting up the numbers while Wiggins had like 7 points.
Yeah, Mulder just signed a multi-year deal too.
I know. Our theory on him is no longer a theory. That's no longer a hypothesis, Adam, on Wiggins.
What was it?
On Wiggins?
On Wiggins. I thought you meant on Mulder.
No, I don't.
I was like, the only thing I know about Mulder is that he was shooting a bunch of threes.
That's what I was going to say. I don't have any theories on him outside of, is he a real person? What about the Clippers?
This kind of the same as we've talked about. A ton of really, really good players.
Lou Williams is questionable, but
Lou Williams is out, I believe.
Oh, did he get ruled out? Okay. No, I think you're right. Yes. Lou Williams is officially out.
Yeah, Williams out. So I think that does potentially open the door for maybe more minutes for like Pat Beverly or Reggie Jackson, who are 37 and 3,900 respectively. That's a place you could look to for value. The problem, of course, is that opportunity cost at guard is really high. But you're talking about 26 minutes from Lou Williams being taken out of the rotation. So some of that, probably goes to like Magruder, but I could see where maybe you get a little bit more of Beverly and Jackson in an appealing spot. A ton of steal upside for Beverly here against a young Golden State team as well. So I think that's where I'm mostly interested in the Clippers. Obviously Kawhi and George and Harrell give you a lot of, or especially Kawhi and George give you a lot of upside, but when they're playing together and their minutes are down a little bit and this team is mostly healthy, it's tough to prioritize anything.
All right. So we're, and I agree with that. So no need to delve deeper into it. We're up against it. So I want you to run with this. Deion Waiters won't make his debut for the Lakers. Garrett Temple is out for the Brooklyn Nets. That's your news there. Lakers laying 11.5 at home, 228.5 total. Go for it, man. Close us out for the night.
Yeah, so LeVert and Dinwiddie are both still cheap. It's a tough matchup against the Lakers. On DraftKings, I prefer Dinwiddie over LeVert by a little bit just because he's he's $700 less. On FanDuel, I give the edge to LeVert because he's a shooting guard and he's only $200 more. So they look like the two main guys from Brooklyn. You can take a shot on DeAndre Jordan, assuming he stays in the starting lineup, but center is not really a position that I want to be rolling the dice on, hoping for like 26 minutes of DeAndre Jordan. So pretty much just looking to the backcourt there. From the Lakers side, you have LeBron expected to play. So he's just tough for me to get to over guys like Luka or Westbrook or Harden, all those guys at the top. Davis, though, looks good. It's a good spot for him. Dwight Howard's out. You've been seeing more minutes for Davis at the 5 anyway. So I think he looks like the top option for me from the Lakers. You do have a $3,200 Danny Green that you can take, roll the dice on in tournaments. Being able to play him at forward instead of guard is nice. I would expect 24, 25 minutes from him, and you're just hoping that he shoots well. But and Kuzma could get into the mid-20s in minutes. But Davis really the priority for me from this game and from the Lakers.
Well, that'll do it for us. A lot of games today, a lot of news. Thanks for hanging out. As always, stick around. Eddie and EMAC coming up next, live before lock, taking you up through 7 p.m. And remember, SuperDraft, their lock tonight is at 8 p.m. So when everything locks at 7, you're going to have a ton of time to prep for this one. 7,000 up top, the first place in the 36K jump shot. $12 to enter. Use the promo code Awesemo when you sign up. Get your $20 free in Super Cash when you deposit $100 or more and win some money over there. SuperDraft.io or in the App Store. They're going to go up till 7:30 with that tonight. Lock is at 8. Stay tuned. Live Before Lock coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow on the Deeper Dive.
Here we are. It is the Live Before Lock. It is Fast Eddie Fair. It is your old pal Emac. No, it is not a Saturday or a Sunday. It is Tuesday night. Back again. I think this is my third Tuesday in a row, Eddie. That feels like a streak.
3 and 4.
It's quite a few. It's quite a few. Yeah, just real quickly as we get caught up here, and I'm opening a few windows and such. What a night last night for those of you. That was a little bit crazy. I was getting ready to record the Early Bird podcast with one Joey Corman, and I messaged him and I said, "Oh, hey, Connor McDavid got scratched in hockey. I'm changing my lineups." And I said, well, I'll just be a few minutes. And then I saw this news that said Chris Middleton's not starting. So I messaged him. I said, "Hey, Chris Middleton's not starting. That seems a little bit weird." And next thing you know, yeah, no Chris Middleton. What do you do from there? And it became quite interesting. So my decision point was get off everybody that like Brooke Lopez, Middleton were the two I said I don't want any of. I didn't know what to do with DiVincenzo because he comes off the bench normally. So I said, all right, I'm backing off. I was at 80% him and 80% Middleton. So I backed off down to 20% of DiVincenzo because I'm like, this guy could get 35 fantasy points, with this lack of usage. Kept about 15% of Marvin Williams because I didn't think he'd sit. If I thought if anybody did, it would be Ersan. And lo and behold, those guys were out. The double overtime in the first game, Eddie. The pivots, you had 42 minutes off the bench of Pat McCaw, who nobody was on, and he scored, 4 fantasy points or something like that. You had Norm Powell was he got hurt early. OG Anunoby got dinged up, came back. You had bad games from Jokic. I mean, you couldn't invent a script with more things falling apart in it. Like, if you told me all these things, I'd be like, that'll never happen.
Yeah,
It happened.
Yeah, I was playing Call of Duty all night, so thankfully it was my day off. But I checked in a couple times during the night and reviewed everything today, and I'm like, this must have been an unbelievable nightmare to watch that 3-game slate with all that going on. So yep.
All right. Well, this is just for Let's Get It. He says, enough of me. He wants to hear from you. That's fine. I do as well. So we are live before lock, and we were going to go till 8:00. Now we're only going to go till 7:30 because I don't get to talk anymore because it's going to be Eddie. So there we go.
You're weak. You're weak. I could have caught you with some fine jokes. But all right.
All with let's get it, or whatever his name is. But there we go. So we got 2 games at 7. Big break. The rest of the slate at 8:00. So we'll of course hit these 2 games and start working our way through the slate. We did have the deep dive before us. They went over most of the important stuff. We do have the majority of news that we are waiting for, Eddie. There does not seem to be any potential bombshells, but gosh, there didn't really seem to be that many last night either. Is there any big piece of news that we're waiting on? We already know Steph Curry is out, as is Seth Curry. We know Draymond's out. Lou Williams is out. You've got Kai Bowman out. We know Dwight Howard is out. Dion Waiters not going to be making his debut tonight. Garrett Temple's still out. Who else? Lonnie Walker is out, as is DeJounte Murray. But Marco Bellinelli be available. Sometimes he gets DNPs. Sometimes he plays 17 minutes. Who knows? We've got, let's see, Darius Garland, Tristan Thompson still out, as is Kevin Porter. Jaylen Brown, we know, is still out for the Wizards. We've got Isaac. I want to say Itzhak Rabin every time I think of his name, and that's not even close. Yeah, my brain stores things in weird ways. But Isaac Bonga is out. We have Jerome Robinson, I believe, is a true game time decision. And then we've got Mitch Robinson on the other side, also as what looks to be a game time decision with an illness. We should have that information, but go to town, Eddie. The floor is yours.
All right. I don't know quite where to start. So let's
start with both these first games.
Yeah, no, never. My wife tried to get me after I told her the story. My wife tried to both of me in the middle of the night. I'm like, that's not happening. That's not. I was like half asleep, but it's still like I'm on full getting these nuts caught guard mode. Like anyhow. I'm just gonna spiel a bit on a few things and handle some questions and see what I miss. I would avoid getting overly excited about JaVale McGee. Now, I like JaVale McGee quite a bit, but it should be pointed out that they were running really a 4-man center rotation there, and that's so the news that Dwight Howard is out is not the boon that it would have been even a couple of weeks ago. Basically, for the longest time, it was great to go to either Dwight Howard or JaVale McGee when Brow was out, which happened 7-8 times so far this year, because those 3 guys were sharing the center minutes, and all of a sudden you would have cheap Dwight Howard or cheap JaVale McGee getting 20, 24, 28. They'd combine for 48 minutes at center. That worked out really well. Now Dwight Howard is out, and people are like, "Oh, JaVale McGee." It's good for JaVale McGee. It moved my projection for JaVale McGee to 20.5 minutes, which he can do a lot of damage in, and the matchup is brilliant. If they're not playing the Nets, I would be pretty negative on it. Because they're playing the Nets, and that's a way to go and get some real damage done, even with DeAndre in there, who I do believe will start again, but still a very good matchup. But the rest of the team is healthy, and they were in a 4-man center rotation. Basically, JaVale McGee starts the game, then he checks out. Usually I think Kuzma comes in for him, but Anthony Davis plays center for a while. Then Markieff Morris is playing center for a little bit now. Then Dwight Howard plays center, usually starting at the beginning of like the second quarter, and they've continually reduced his minutes. Last 2 games, he played 6 and 10 minutes. So maybe all those, we'll call it 10 minutes, go to JaVale McGee, which would make him pretty great. At that point, I'd be pretty excited about that. I would prefer him to some of the other value center options. That would get him over Bryant for me. That would get him over Wendell Carter Jr. if you're looking at FanDuel prices for me. That would make it a priority. I don't think we can assume that's the case. So I like making sure you have some exposure. Hitting 25 minutes now is a very real possibility, but it's far from a sure thing because they aren't a 3-man center rotation anymore. They're a 4-man center rotation, and that's very relevant to me. So have some JaVale McGee, but not, we already had JaVale McGee night for the year. We don't have to try to push it. That was a good one. I don't know who remembers. We had 3% on JaVale McGee, which was like 90% people who watched the show for whatever reason it was, and he had like 55. That was a good day. But no, McGee is not a lock. Right now, if he were the same price as those other two centers, I probably would have him. I do have him projected for fewer fantasy points than both Wendell Carter Jr. and Thomas Bryant. And fewer minutes. Very close. I have him all within, I think, about 1.5. But so we'll be reacting to ownership as far as that goes. So wouldn't go, ape shit crazy now. I'll move to something else. Someone says they're very heavy on Houston. Yeah, that game looks ridiculous. I kind of like an overbet on it. None of the defense will be played. Minnesota has been defensively abhorrent forever. Basically, they've looked incredibly poor, including past games with Houston, and I have little hope of massive improvement here tonight. And Houston's new system isn't designed to be bad defensively, but is going to be. So there should be a great number of points here. What's tricky is figuring out where to go with Minnesota. Because Houston, I like Harden, I like Westbrook. I have Harden projected for 2.5 points higher than Westbrook, which obviously does not justify the salary increase most places. But I don't mind playing them both. I'm not surprised to see them collectively score 130 fantasy points here. And then after that, you're on Covington, and you can try to do some other cute things there. But trying to figure out where to go with Minnesota is tricky, and that's where we'll start looking at ownership for a second. But there are pretty giant upsides, most obviously for Russell and Beasley, who are taking all the shots and handling the ball a lot. Their prices are higher than we would like to see them, but I think that's sort of a reaction that's irrespective of the play environment. And I would imagine, I'm going to look at some ownership in a second. I imagine I would get over the field on those guys. I like getting some tournament exposure to James Johnson tonight. He's been really good and really consistent. And this is a game that is well made for his ability to score fantasy points in every way possible. He's like 5K, so you can't overexpose him. Not someone you're going to go to a metric butt ton of. But I want to get pieces of this game if they're going to score 250 points. And I think, maybe this is the game where we get a couple extra shots out of Hernan Gomez. You can do that. The price is hard, and it should be at 5K. The environment makes that price fair, but you're still not thrilled with it. Nasreed obviously has the upside. Shouldn't bury the lead there. If he can manage to stay on the court defensively, like this is a bit of an issue for him relative to James Johnson. One of the reasons I like James Johnson is either foul trouble out of Nasreed or getting his butt put on the bench because he's not playing defense terribly well, which hasn't happened that often. Flip has not been quick with the hook, but I have concerns that could happen. So, maybe I get 30 minutes of James Johnson in this matchup. That's kind of sexy for me. I kind of like going there. And there are edge cases with other guys that ranked like McLaughlin. But I imagine, and let me get to my first view of ownership in a couple hours. And let's see where we have a lot of these guys owned. So, right, we have, and to sort of, make the point, the three obvious Houston plays we have is the 3rd, 4th, and 9th highest owned plays on the slate. We have no one on Minnesota in the top 20. That does not make a ton of sense. That's something I would try to react to. So our most owned guy is Beasley at 6,200. We have him at 11%. Okay, I'd probably have more than that. Wancho, 5,200, 8%. That feels about right for me. I wouldn't want to be over there. D'Angelo Russell, 7%. I try to get that up to 12, 14, 15. He is a guy who can put up 60 in a game, and you're not going to find an environment any more conducive to him hitting an upside more so than this one. Obviously, there are a ton of mid to high priced guard plays that are brilliant. So it is hard to get an additional degree of exposure there. But, just a couple of the other pieces here. But yeah, James Johnson, when I come to him, sitting in here at 2% owned. Man, I'd get 4 or 5% owned. Like we have him at 2% owned at 4,900, and we have PJ Tucker at 2% owned at 4,200. I'm much more excited to get to James Johnson.
All right, question super chat here from Aiden Queskin. He says, with Luka leaving shoot around early, if he should sit tonight, do you prefer Porzingis over Westbrook or Harden?
Well, that wasn't a proper shoot around, but I understand. He went out early to warm up. They are in San Antonio for this game. So he sort of went out early to see how he was doing. I don't think that was his proper shoot around, based on my understanding of the situation. That being said, if Luka is out, it's going to depend a little bit on the time, but especially if it is into late swap time, because that's one of the 8 p.m.s. I want to make sure I'm getting that right. That's one of the 8 p.m. games. They're in Texas. It should be. Yes, it's one of the 8 p.m. games. So assuming the news that Luka is out comes available between 7 and 8 Eastern time, yes, I would then prioritize Kristaps over those other guys. I'm not concerned with the matchup against Aldridge Lyles at all. We've even started to see a couple of serious Kristaps games with Luka in there, which is something that I was very suspect about. And with him out, with the other significant minutes guys out there, with Willie Cauley-Stein also out, so you're looking at more time, more center time. Yes, I would probably in a single lineup, based on their, what I would expect their ownerships to be and their exposure. If the news that Luka was out came out between 7 and 7:59, yes, I would rather have Kristaps in one lineup if I had to make that decision between those two guys.
All right. Eric Gordon will play. Ben McLemore available to play. Ryan Arcidiacono out. Okay. We have a question. Super chat here from the Maharishi that ties into this. Playing DK3 Max, would you have one of Harden and Russ in all of them? Would you consider playing both of them? Both of them?
If I was both of them, it's lucky I heard you, because if I'd half heard the question, I could have said both of who, and you could have said, but you could have gone right there. But thankfully, your dulcet tones were perfectly clear. I imagine if I built 3 lineups, I would have one Harden, one Westbrook, and one neither. That's top of my head. I certainly would have no objection to all 3, and less than 2 would feel a little awkward for me. Again, you said DK 3 max, so the price on Westbrook is still really too cheap. We have had a couple, there's a blowout game, there's a foul trouble game, but even with Harden there, dude is giving you 60 4 out of 5 games or something right now. 10-1 is simply too cheap of a price. Now again, guard is just vicious comparing him to him, Lillard, Booker. Like, I could talk for 5 minutes just on guards who cost between 6 and 10.1K who I really like. So it's difficult to get a metric ton. So for that reason, I imagine one of those 3 lineups, again, just doing this in my head, I would have tons of, Elfrid Payton, Kemba Walker, like just putting in other guards who I think can get there. Kemba's a good example. I have him up to 32 minutes for tonight. The matchup, not a terribly bad one for him relative to the team, as in other people have more difficult matchups. I think he can get there. Actually, come to think of it, I'm pretty sure he had like 40 real points against the Pacers earlier this year. There's only the second Pacers Celtics game of 3. They only play 3 in those divisions. Yeah, they only play 3. This is the second one. First one, I think Kemba went the hell off. Don't really care about a 1-game sample, but I do care that the minutes are continuing to come up. The price has descended. I like it more on FanDuel, where he's 6,700. He's been active. He's looked okay. Just hasn't shot very well. You look at his games since returning, they're like 4 for 14, 5 for 17, so on and so forth. He could very well shoot 10 for 19 tonight, and that would be pretty exciting for me. Not a priority, but I expect him to be pretty low on. Another guy I would try to do some rounding up on. I like Wendell Carter Jr., especially on FanDuel. I really like Andre Drummond. We already had Andre Drummond night. We've had about 5 Andre Drummond nights this year. Shout out to Miles Turner. Thanks for everything you've done for the community who watches the shows. But yeah, this is a really, really, really nice spot. I like Andre Drummond a ton. I like Kevin Love a ton. On FanDuel, I can get to Larry Nance again. Seems like they're going to continue to give him the backup center time. That's enough for me at like $5,400. DK, there's a lot of really good deals tonight. It's a little harder for me to get to that price, but last game, even when Thompson wasn't there, they expurgated Zizic from the lineup entirely and let Nance get that backup 5 time. That's enough for me. A couple of other games when I don't think he's going to play center, I'm generally not that Larry Nance excited because his production is massively different. It's like 1.2 at center and 0.8 not at center. I mean, he's a much different basketball player when he gets out there at center. So I think he gets 16 minutes of backup center behind Andre Drummond's 32. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. But I like the matchup for Wendell Carter himself. I don't think we've seen a specific minutes restriction yet, but I have him at I think 25, which makes 3,900, especially on FanDuel. Brilliant. The only thing that isn't brilliant is center, and there's a lot of centers I like. There's a lot of everything I like tonight. It's a really juicy slate. I love Julius Randle. This is a great spot for him. Fourth meeting for these guys. He's been very good in all three of the previous. I imagine he's averaging somewhere in the range of 50 fantasy points a game in the previous three iterations of this matchup. Slightly different matchups each time. I think Hachimura only played one of them. The other two I think he missed because of the injury to his Bofa. I like Randall a lot. I certainly don't mind Elfrid Payton. I don't mind having those two guys together at a 6K price tag, or 6.2 and 6.3, I think are the numbers on. Next best would be the fine spot for him. I like Troy Brown if Jerome Robinson is out. Otherwise, I don't like Troy Brown. You can still get there. Bonga being out helps quite a bit, but at the degree of popularity we show him, if Jerome is out, then I'm a little more excited. If Jerome is in, there's still enough ways for them to sort of screw that up, and his popularity really won't change. So I kind of right now the ownership on Troy Brown is a little too high if Jerome plays. If Jerome is out, then it's fine, or even a little bit too low. So that would be a determiner for me choosing whether to go A or B. Jerome Robinson is in and starting.
Yeah, I just saw that. So Napier, Beal, Jerome Robinson, Hachimura, and Bryant starting.
Yeah. So Jerome Robinson himself, feel free. There's a lot of good value. People aren't going to get there. He is not super upside guy. We've seen a lot of him with the Clippers. But I would have him as a second tier value guy. I would have interest around that price. He would rank similar for me to Josh Okogie, someone I think gets 30 minutes again in that lightning speed game, but is kind of ass. That's pretty decent simulacrum here for another guy. Costs about 4,000, should get 30 something minutes in a game that projects to have a lot of scoring. Just doesn't happen to be good at basketball, but sun shines on a dog's ass someday, so on and so forth. So Jerome, and I would deprioritize Troy Brown simply because there's a lot of other priorities. But he projects obviously just fine as a player. Ish out, I have no problem getting back to Shabazz Napier. They may run his ass out there like 40 minutes. So Shabazz, someone you should make sure you have some of.
You want to hit a couple premium Slack questions here?
Sure, do it. Let's go.
Derek White or Shaq Harrison, FanDuel single entry?
Derek White for me, not terribly close. I like Shaq Harrison as a player. I like the matchup for him. He projects just fine, but I'm pretty sure we have him as like the highest owned player on the slate, and that's just wrong. Like, just close your eyes. Oh, he's moved down some now. Okay, he's moved down some now. He's still about 20%, and we have Derek White higher than him. Okay, so let's see. You're saving $400 on Derek White. In cash, I would play Shaq Harrison. It seems unlikely he doesn't get his 32 minutes. In GPPs, I really don't want to play either of them. I'm not saying I would have zero of them in GPPs, and I'm not saying their current ownership of 25 for White and 20 for Shaq Harrison aren't reasonable. They're just still Derek White and Shaq Harrison and come with all the various inequities that those things bring. Shaq Harrison is not going to average 5 stocks a game. He's going to average 2.5. He's a pretty good defender. Having Zach LaVine out is that game actually ends up being really fascinating. I like Kevin Love a lot on FanDuel. Kevin Love's $6,900 on FanDuel. Dude has played like 37, 40 minutes in his last 3 games and has routinely beaten the crap out of Chicago, which is par for the course for any halfway talented power forward. Laurie being back just makes that even sweeter. I have Kevin Love projected for well over 40 fantasy points tonight, and he's 6,900 on FanDuel. That's very good. You can get there on DraftKings, but FanDuel, all the Cavs really are pretty damn juicy. That includes Drummond, obviously. Drummond had a bit of a checkered year in the good matchup with the Bulls this year. Again, this has been Something I've talked about way more than any other team. This is like you in Sacramento against shooting guards. But the Bulls, very, very good in backcourt defense and very, very, very bad in front court defense. One of the rare exceptions to that is Andre Drummond has kind of fallen over his own whatever this year, again, a few times playing against them. One of the times he got ejected in like 13 minutes was against them when he was like mega chalk. He was in the middle of his hot run. He was like 40% on. He went out there and pretty sure he played like 12 minutes in one game. Then there's this another game. He was balls out terrible. And the game when he got benched for the entire second half, that one time when he was on, this is Detroit, obviously. That was against the Bulls. So it's been a bit of a thing. I don't care. He's still 8,000 and something. This not dissimilar to when we got him at 9% owned against the Pacers a week ago. And I was like, if dude plays minutes, he's going to be the best play on the slate. And he got 36 minutes and was the best play on the slate. And all the money was won. He's not going to go that under the radar today, even at DK where the price is higher than it is on FanDuel. We currently have him projected for 6th, 7th highest owned player. So I'm fine with that number. It's a very similar situation. Hard for him to screw this up if he gets the time. I'm a little more excited to play, certainly on FanDuel again, Kevin Love, where the price is even juicier.
Would you go with Vucevic over Drummond on FanDuel? Premium slot question.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'd be inclined to do that. I don't mind the matchup for Vooch. We've gotten a fairly decent number of Valanciunas Vooch games. It is a spot like he's had a 2020 game against him. I think that was last year. Like it's not a bad Vooch spot. The upside is there, but I think Drummond has a higher upside, costs less, more frequently gets there. So I don't mind it as a pivot. I would probably Valanciunas pivot before I went there. Valanciunas is just an amazing fantasy basketball player, and team's on an island again. But it's just the combination of their entire front court is injured with no Clark, no Winslow, no Jaren Jackson Jr., and they're fighting for a playoff spot, which they are currently holding. And so, yeah, they're going to let dude play 32, 34 minutes a night instead of 25 or 26. And that makes him a monster. And I know we're all used to no other good centers and him at 7K, but, you know, he had 60 in his last game. It's not quite that matchup, but at 8K, he can still do a lot of damage. So I would also rather pivot to Whiteside than Vooch in a similar price category if I was going to go around that price at center. You want Ayton in for that? You don't really care if Ayton's out for that. Yeah, they just played a couple days ago. We just had the Aaron Baines game. That was against Portland.
Yeah, it really
was. That was whatever, 4 days ago or whatever. That was against this team. So any centers in that game, I'm going to have some degree of interest in. But Whiteside's been very good. This is the 4th Portland-Phoenix game this year. I don't think he's had a bad one. I guess he's over 50 average. Now, again, Randall, I like more than Whiteside because I only have Randall projected for 46, but I still have Randall projected for 46, which I'm going to guess is 5 or 6 points higher than anyone else. So I guess that's the one I'm putting a risk out there on. But I believe that usage is very solid. I really like Kobe White. That matchup is, again, obviously brilliant, and the minutes will go up or stay where they are. But I don't worry about the usage decreasing with this particular change, especially with their interchangeable front and back units. You have Porter in that back unit a lot. I don't think it changes the usage much. The minutes make up even more. And he's taken 20 or more shots, like 5 of the last 6 games. Still a really good matchup. For the Cavs, again, I'd rather go to the front court members. Obviously Sexton has had some massive usage games. Not saying don't play Colin Sexton, but at their ownerships, I would rather get to all the guys in the front court before I got there because the matchup's that good. Chicago's cannot guard anyone inside, ever. Like, they've played, 64 games this year. They've had good interior defense in 2 of them. The rest of the time, the opposing interior had a good fantasy game, and I don't think it lets up here against a Cavs team that's been really tight with that rotation. So I really like Love. I really like Drummond. I don't have a problem getting to some dance. Where he's still cheap enough, I don't have an issue with Chetty Osman. Bulls, I'm a little more worried about when you talk about Shaq Harrison. Give me a couple extra minutes for Markkanen tonight, right? Where do those come from? There's going to be a couple extra minutes for Otto Porter probably tonight. Where do those come from? what happens to, Shaq Harrison's usage when you put Kobe White in the starting lineup? What if Denzel Valentine plays 22 minutes?
We don't know because Kobe White hasn't started yet.
Yes, that's true. But that's what I'm saying is there's still some uncertainty there. So there's just kind of other places I would rather go than a fairly chalky Shaq Harrison. Obviously, he can do very well. He's done very well for the last 5 games. Guy costs $5K and can get you 40. Don't have an issue if you get there, but there's just take any player on the Golden State Warriors who are missing Curry and play Poole, play Pascal, play Damian Lee, play one of those guys who is going to be 6% owned instead of a guy I have projected almost the same at the same price who's going to be quadruple the ownership. So usually over the long term, I'm going to be against chalk unless it's well-deserved. And those guys.
Do you have a favorite FanDuel play? And could you also talk about FanDuel point guards for tournaments?
Just a favorite FanDuel play, sure.
And if you have a lock button play, which I know you don't, but if you did.
I have a lock button play 5 times a year. It's weird. For me to have a lock button play, someone needs to be massively owned and for some reason only is 20%. So Andre Drummond against Miles Turner has been a lock button play at least 3 times because, he's destroyed that matchup 13 of the last 14 times and he's never quite high enough owned. So at a certain point, I'm just we have it 27% owned. That should be 60. So F it, I'm going to make it 100 is generally how that works. In theory, I don't think 100 is ever right outside of a situation where the differential between where a guy should be owned and where he is owned is literally massive. So FanDuel, it would be probably one of the power forwards would be either Randall or Love. I really like those guys. I have them both projected to pretty well crush their prices. And I don't think either of them is high enough owned. I'll guess on FanDuel, they're both around 20. You want to look at Julius Randle and Kevin Love ownership for me, and then I will respond to that question.
We just got an ownership update for those of you behind the paywall. If you are not behind the paywall, hey, you really should be. Use the promo code Live Before Lock, all one word, to get 50% off any 1-week package. Who are the 2 you wanted?
Randall and Love, please, at power forward on FanDuel.
Oops, I went to Randall is 15%.
Love it.
Love is 12.5.
Love it. So yeah, probably those guys. There, I made you some power forwards. Let me look at other power forwards because again, out of context, no particular information is that great. Davis, I assume Anthony Davis will play. More time at center is good for him. I will still straight up prefer LeBron tonight. I like the matchup for him quite a bit. They don't have anyone who's really a very decent on-ball defender at this point, and he just gets to the lane constantly. And yes, I fairly certain he triple-doubled when they played the Nets earlier this year with everyone in there. So I'm fine with Anthony Davis. I think it's a great play. 10-4 is a great price. There's a million great plays today. But going through power forward, Kristaps, that would get really close for me, even at 9,400 if Luka was out. But I'm still going to take Randall and Love. They're going to project better for me. And at that point, they'll just make them lower owned. I like Sabonis at 8,500. That's actually a pretty nice spot for him. I like Randall and Love more. I like Aaron Gordon at only 7,000. Dude has been going off. Losing Fournier does not hurt his usage, nor Vucevic for the person who asked that question there. That is a very relevant thing. A little more inclined to get to the value guards there. Augustine, my favorite of those between him, Michael Carter-Williams. Someone asked about Fultz. I think Fultz is very much in play, but I'm ambivalent at a price of 5.7. Covington is a great play. At 6,200, I would really want to get Westbrook or Harden in there to sort of cover my lack of exposure to that guy. I would rather play Love and Randall. The overall points would end up very close, point per dollar. I mentioned Nance. Naz Reid is a power forward. That's nice. James Johnson I mentioned at 5K. Eric Pascal is still 5K. Eric Pascal, I think Eric Pascal has 30 or more fantasy points, 6 games in a row, by the way. I keep talking about this dude. Yeah, 6 in a row. He's 5,000 on FanDuel. And there's no Steph and no Draymond again. No, the matchup not particularly wonderful, so not a priority, not over any of these other guys, but he's perennially under-owned. Sarge could be interesting. Markkanen 4,700 on both sides. Those minutes are going to continue to climb. He's playing Cleveland. I would try to have some there. I mean, it's a very tough night because all these guys look great. Jeff Green, I'm less inclined towards when we have Ben McLemore playing and Eric Gordon playing, as you alluded to a minute ago. we had gotten more Jeff Green not playing just the backup 5. He'll probably go back to just playing the backup 5. Speaking of which, Dragon Bender, there was a flavor of the month there. He's not good. The Warriors figured out. Shockingly, he's not good. He's probably going to just back up Marquise Chris, which is nice for Marquise Chris. I have Marquise Chris rated as 2As today. He has really the only good matchup against the Clippers team. The minutes are very solid, mostly because Kevon Looney and Alan Smiljicic are still out. So they are running. They have really one guy they want to play at center. They kind of want to play Dragon Bender at the 4, but they're playing him as the backup 5 right now. So that helps Chris. The minutes get projected a little higher. I can see going there, and that's a quick tour through power forwards on FanDuel, which no one even asked, but someone asked Lock Button. It'd probably be one of those two, 7K range. Love and Randall. Regarding the point guard situation, again, it's incredibly juicy. Luka, if he plays, is going to be under-owned at this point if you ignore the existence of the wrist injury. Obviously, very dangerous at this point, but 4% Luka at 10-9 on FanDuel is pretty interesting, and that's what he's going to be going
Yep, Luka expected to play. Dorian Finney-Smith expected to play. Magic starting full to Wundu, Ennis, Gordon, and Vooch. Celtics starting Walker, Smart, Tatum, Hayward, and Tice. Knicks starting Peyton, Barrett, Harkless, Randall, and Gibson. And then the Spurs starting White, Forbes, DeRozan, Lyles, and Aldridge.
Any news on Spurs again?
Spurs are White, Forbes, DeRozan, Lyles, Aldridge.
Okay, that's what I thought you'd get there. Any news on Mitch Robinson yet?
No.
Okay, if you get news, Mitch Robinson is out. Play some Bobby Portis. He won't get moved to enough, and the upside is very real, and the matchup is gorgeous. This is, you can get that 50K spot. Point guard on FanDuel is a nightmare because there's a lot of good guys. The following guys I think are just great, at least to play in tournaments: Doncic, Westbrook, Lillard, White, Peyton, Morant. You're not going to make the list. Rubio, Kemba, Sexton, where that price is still that low. Napier, Shaq Harrison, apparently, though I'd have him about 12th on my list here. Fultz under 5K. Derek White at 4,800. Aaron Holiday at 44 is not unreasonable. Poole at 44 is not unreasonable. Dellavedova could be in play. Augustine at 39. Reggie Jackson at 38. So with Lou Williams out, Reggie Jackson is the guy I'm a little more interested in. I'm talking about moving from the 2% the field was on to 5% now. But I think there's a real chance they stretch out his minutes and he gets some more time there. You could also now have a couple shares of Landry Shamet. Patrick Beverly was chalked the other day, and I crapped all over him, and he played 17 minutes and had 9 fantasy points, and everyone thought he was going to spend the whole time playing Twister with Russell Westbrook, and I'm like, they've said 10 times, they're really trying to take it easy with him. Like, they're trying to get ready for the postseason. That's what all this is about for them. So, similarly about that.
Quick FanDuel, we're still there. Super chat from Manny C, who's the big one, 6-figure winner the other night. Bridges, Porter, or Hernan Gomez. He doesn't say which Porter, but they're both 4,600.
Yeah, the funny thing is, all those guys have multiple players in the NBA with that name. There are multiple Bridges, Porters, and Hernan Gomez in the league. Yes. Only one Hernan Gomez is playing. Only one Bridges is playing tonight.
And it's Porter, not Todd.
Only one is not hurt and playing tonight. There are 3 Porters. They're all juniors, but okay.
No relation, though. 3 Otto Porter juniors.
I have sussed out your question, however, though. It required some legwork. I enjoyed the little puzzle on top. Thank you so much. Bridges, Hernan Gomez, or Porter. I would probably play Hernan Gomez. The usage hasn't really been there, but this is a spot where I think he could get 15 shots and make 11 of them. Like, I do think there is some sort of ceiling there, and at what I would expect to be very, very nominal ownership, just getting a piece of that game other people aren't going to get to is probably where I would go among those 3 players. I don't think any of them are bad whatsoever. I think, Bridges has been in fine form. Again, if you go back and look at that Portland-Phoenix game from those days ago, even with Aaron Baines going the hell off, like 3 of the other 4 starters were still really, really good, to make a point at how fast they were playing and how bad that defense is. Let me see if I can find that box score real quick. I think like Sarge was crap and everyone else was good, I think. Let me do. Sarge played 17 minutes, had 2 points, 2 rebounds. Wait, this isn't it. That isn't it. I got the wrong box score. Mother. Okay, here it is. I still think Sarge was kind of the worst one. Nope, Sarge was good. 24, 8, 3 steals and a block. That's really good. McCall Bridges, 18, 5, 2, 2, and 1. That's really good. Baines, dear Lord, super. Rubio, who's just been amazing. I guess this is the worst of the starters. 13 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals. So didn't quite make 40. So yeah, the last time these two teams played, every one of the starters was good. Eyeballing the fantasy points, you had 40 for Sarge, 35 for Bridges, 65 or so this looks like for Baines. I wasn't on that day, sadly. Rubio had like 37, which I guess is low man, and Booker had 23, 12, 5, and 1. So he only had 44 or something. Like, that's a really good matchup. So, I mentioned that for the purpose of, McCall Bridges. Now, it's interesting if Ayton gets back in there. I like Ayton himself at what would be nominal ownership. It's difficult to know what they would do with Baines, whose price is now ridden. They could play them next to each other. They experimented with that earlier in the year. Didn't go very well. I think that's unlikely, but not impossible. So you look at Sarge maybe losing some time. You look at McCall Bridges, who has played really well, both ends of the court too. Supreme defender, great defender. Rubio, that price on FanDuel, that's really good, brother. 6,700. He's been going the hell off. Like, I have not game logged Rubio today.
Would you go Rubio or Walker, Kemba, on FanDuel? That was a question.
Yeah,
about the same price.
I would probably myself play Kemba for what I consider a really nice ownership discount. But Rubio, Rubio 72 fantasy points in that game against the Bucks. 25 points, 13 assists, 13 rebounds. Okay, that's absurd. And a hell of a game, and he deserves a lot of credit there. But again, shot, a little over his average from the field. Same thing with the game before that. Same thing with the game before that. He kind of backdoored into both of those double-doubles with assists. So you look at that last game, it's incredible. And again, that's a pretty good matchup for him with Milwaukee. But the two before that were both 13, 10, and 4. One with 2 steals, one with 1. If he drops 1 assist from those games, which again would put him closer to his average, where he's going to average, 7.5, 8, depending on how many minutes he plays, they end up being 33 fantasy point games, and that's not anything to write home about. So I don't have projected that differently from Kemba, and I expect Kemba to be well lower owned because Rubio's been just going the hell off. And to be fairness, Rubio was really good for a while this year. Then his ankle was kind of jacked up around the All-Star break, and he looks 100% again. So I like playing some Ricky Rubio, but 7,500 on DK, he may be my least favorite son, and I still like him quite a bit in that matchup.
All right, a bunch of JaVale McGee questions. So here they are. Would you play him as the last man in on cash? How do you feel about him in tournaments? And do you like him and or any other really cheap players?
All right, so I'm going to run through some ownership chat because that's going to be one of them. And we will see what we have, and we'll talk about some stuff. We now have 3 guys basically tied for top ownership right now. Make sure I'm on DraftKings and not FanDuel. This is DraftKings. Okay, we have Russell Westbrook, Marquise Chris, and Shaq Harrison all tied for the highest owned player. I like Shaq Harrison well less than those other 2 players. There are 11 other players who cost within $300 of Shaq Harrison's price that I have projected within 2 or 3 points of his fantasy projection. Getting that high doesn't make sense. Chris, well, getting that high always makes sense, but getting to that high level of ownership, I don't think is necessarily ideal. So Chris, 25%. I would still have a little bit less because I do think the slate has tons of brilliant plays, and that's still a little more dense than it should be. But I feel better about that. And Westbrook at 25, I might actually get over. So, and it's pretty rare for me to say that's the most owned guy in the slate. I would have more. I think I would have more Westbrook. I'd have a little less Chris. I'd have a lot less Shaq Harrison. Robert Covington, 6,200 is really good. We have him sitting in the 4 spot. That's not crazy. Again, when that trade went down, we talked about it live when it broke, and I was like, this just should be massive for Covington with what they're doing for that team, and it's coming to pass. And the rebounding is a little bit more than I think it'll be long term, but he's a very good rebounder for his size, especially. The steals have always been legit. It's just a very good price in a really fast game, so I might even have more of that. Derek White, 23%. I would probably have less. I think the likelihood is he plays 30 minutes in a very good matchup and is very good, and I would be concerned if I had that much. There's just a ton of value guys I like between, $3,500 and $5,000. So I don't think I would land that heavily on one, but no issue with that. We then have Kobe White. I'm fine with it. We then have Troy Brown Jr. With Reggie in and starting. I would probably run screaming in the other direction. I like him just fine, but again, it just does not need to be that popular. Andre Drummond. Yeah, that works for me. JaVale McGee, we then have next at 18%. I would probably have less than that. I think it's just fine. I think he is over-owned relative to how much he should be because people don't understand the way they're playing center on that team right now. If Brow happens to be out, dear Lord, who I think is questionable. No, he's probable. But he's randomly, if Anthony Davis sits, then yes, have 100% JaVale McGee, have a good time.
Yeah, he's still listed as a game time decision, but he's probable.
Yeah.
So
Sarge went off against the Blazers last game. Yeah, as I alluded to a minute ago, everyone went off against the Blazers last game. Literally, their 5 starters, none of them didn't have a good game, and 3 of them had exceptional games. And that was with one of them, normally the lowest usage guy, dropping a 65 burger. And so, you know, if you give yourself the normal Baines game and redistribute those points, anyhow. Harden, I'm fine at that level. DeRozan, I would have less with Aldridge back. I don't know if this is accurate. I suspect this is actually high, showing 16% DeMar DeRozan. With Aldridge back, he was a little disappointing with Aldridge out. I'm fine with it. He's priced fine, but he doesn't deserve to be the 10th highest owned player on the slate. Lillard, 15. We have Pat Beverly at 14%, and like the 12th highest owned player, I would play 0 at this point. I will let other people deal with it. There's very possibly a blowout with Golden State in which they do not want to play him.
So no Lou Williams is one question with him. Sure. And then the other question is, what do you do with Reggie Jackson with potential?
I'll play Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson might play in a blowout. Landry Shamet will play in a blowout. Pat Beverly will not play in a blowout, which is reasonably likely here. They're in Golden State. Maybe they keep it close. Maybe Pat Beverly is just not. He's very much in that PJ Tucker school where when he's chalk, I'm almost never going to want to get there. They're just guys who can have flat games no matter what. You could take Kawhi Leonard and Paul George off too, and it wouldn't change that much for him. It's not like he goes from like a 0.8 per minute player or whatever he is on the season. I guess he's 0.75, 0.8. And you get rid of, if you took Kawhi Leonard and Paul George off the court, he'd go up to like 0.92. He's just not that guy. So being like, oh, Lou Williams is out. Now Pat Beverly is, what's he going to do? Like he's playing the Warriors. It's a great matchup. Certainly could be the day you get 35 out of Pat Beverly, but I'm not getting anywhere near chalk Pat Beverly. I would just pick lower owned guys who have a better upside there. Pick a Spurs guard works. Play Reggie Jackson for $200 more.
Is Lyles still in play with Aldridge back? Is a super chat
still in play with Aldridge back?
Is Lyles?
I did not rank Lyles. And now, knowing now that he starts, I would probably go back and rank him as a C in cash and a C in tournaments. I won't take the time to do so because we're coming up on lock.
Yep, but 11 minutes, gamers. We're staying on until 7:30. Super draft locks at 8. We'll talk about that.
The minutes are just going to be all the hell over the place. I don't know how many minutes he plays now. He's playing up to 40 minutes at center or whatever. Now he might play 21 minutes of power forward. I did not rank him. I did not rank Rudy Gay at their inflated prices. I just wouldn't play him. Again, there's just so many guys in that price range why accept guys who aren't that productive where the minutes could just fall out from under their feet like that. I would just play Danny Green, who we have at like 5%, rather than Patrick Beverly. Danny Green gets the Nets, which is a very good matchup. Temple is out, which is one of the only matchups I would have been concerned for him individually at any point during the game. Probably plays 30-something minutes to Beverly's. How many minutes did Beverly play the last 2 games? They're not like 17 and 21. Danny Green's going to play 31 minutes. I don't know why he played Pat
Beverly is 26, 23, 20, 24 in his last 4.
Okay. I thought he had some game in the teens. I really thought
his fantasy points have been pretty bad.
No, that's what he does. I'm not blaming the guy. The guy's brilliant. I love watching him play basketball. I'm not a priority to see that. FanDuel 1 lineup, large field GPP. Love Randall and Carter Jr. It's going to be really difficult for me to pick whatever the other one coming is here, just for reference. But here we go. JJ, Nance, and Drummond. JJ. Power forward JJ.
James Johnson.
Oh, James Johnson. I can't believe I didn't get that. I love that guy. Jimmy Johnson. Same lineup, Westbrook or Luka with Harden. I don't know how to read your question. The first one of the 3 and 3, and then same lineup, Westbrook or Luka with Harden. Okay, now I got it. Assuming you're running the Randall Carter Jr. one, I would probably at this point run Luka with Harden.
All right, super chat. Would you play Drummond and Love together on FanDuel Cash?
Yes. GPPs, I'd be a little more concerned. Cash, let's go. Really hard for them collectively not to give you 100.
Did you get that other? Was that other confusing one a super chat, or are you ready?
That was Sela Abdallah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Mitch Robinson is supposedly in. I am trying to confirm it. He
Okay.
is.
That's an as you were.
Yeah.
Doesn't change anything. A little bad for Randall, who could have got some more center time. So, like, with all my love for Randall, I'd like that. They called up Antonius Cleveland. He is in.
Yeah, I have, just for the record, I have not confirmed that. I was reading it. They
called up Antonius Cleveland, which is one of the reasons I was a little bit concerned about Luka playing, because that's a move they would make if he was out. But if we are getting rumblings in our tumblings that he will probably go, then that is what that is.
All right, 8 minutes to go. We've got plenty of time. We'll talk about SuperDraft when we get there. We've got a few other questions here. Do you think Ayton's in or out tonight? What is your speculation?
I don't have one. I haven't managed to see anything pertinent, so I have no I have no information.
There's no reason to rush him back, but if he's back, it kind of screws up the front court there, at least. It screws up Baines and Saric. There are, again, brilliant FanDuel plays at center and power forward anyway, so I don't feel the need to pay now starting to be a little priced up Baines and Saric. So I would avoid on FanDuel at this point. Just because whenever you make like a risky play, whenever you're like, this guy might not play, but if he plays, he could be the greatest play ever. The value of that strategy is relative to the number of greatest plays ever. So on a night where I'm like let's say where I'm like, I could take Ayton, and in this matchup with Whiteside, I think he could get me 55 or 60, and he's going to be really low owned. So I'm going to take the risk that a 50-50 doesn't even play and try to get him at like 2% owned. The reason that doesn't work is because there's Whiteside and Drummond and all these other guys out there at the same position who can do it also. So not only does he need to do that and get there, all these other guys who look like they have a very good shot of getting there need to also fail to do so. And then add on top of that the fact that they need to be so good that they're better than all the great plays at the other positions. If Elfrid Payton gets 55 and Dylan Brooks and Bradley Beal and Julius Randle and all those guys go the hell off, then so you need a lot of things to work out. So like running Ayton or something on FanDuel tonight feels a little bit specious. Can you give some thoughts on PG-13 for FanDuel? I think he's just risky just because of the game script. But
yeah, I mean that I would go with because he is going to play.
Yes.
Another guy wants Toscano Anderson. I think you can do. I would probably rather Michael Mulder at like 4,200 if you get there. He should start and get whatever minutes again because again we have no Steph, no Draymond. Wanted to mention that before I forgot to. Who was I asked about? Paul George. I don't have a strong Paul George take. I still have some concern about the minutes. But it would come down to an ownership question. I am guessing we have him in the high singles to low double-digit ownership, which is about where it should be. If we have him at like 4%, I'll like him a lot. If we have him at like 15%, be a slight avoid for me, but not a priority situation for me.
Let's see. For FanDuel GPPs, does it make sense to pay down at shooting guard and center? He's using Oladipo, Danny Green, and Willie Carter. It allows him to get LeBron, Westbrook, and a good power forward. Oladipo
I think that's a great structure. How much does Oladipo cost? Like he'd have to be really cheap for me to endorse that. If he's still like 5,400, that number is a little higher than I want.
Oladipo is 56 DK, 53 FanDuel, 17 Yahoo.
Yeah, so I like this Danny Green. I would probably slightly prefer Dylan Brooks. I would slightly prefer Terrence Ross, probably. I would definitely prefer Damian Lee with Steph out again. So I would start by saying turn Oladipo into Damian Lee. That's where I would go with that. Not that Oladipo was out of play, but I just don't think I don't think in general those guys are going to be as owned as they should be. But yeah, I think that construction is just fine. I like playing. I think you said Wendell Carter at center. I obviously like those power forwards.
Troy Brown or Beverly on single entry DraftKings.
Hit me nasty. Troy Brown though, not terribly close for me.
Yeah. Says there might be a little overlay on DK, so people check that out. I'm assuming it's okay to play Nance and Drummond FanDuel single entry together. I think it is just because of the way the minutes are. I think it could be quick. Everything's scary at this time of the year, but if they're going to play that damn 7.5
one of the reasons to play Nance, a large, like if you were to segment Nance's value and describe it, this much of it is Drummond could be hurt or limited, or the team could not like him, and he could play 24 minutes of center. So when you play them both, you're devalue your investment in Nance, which has that as it. Your really big upside is Drummond gets in foul trouble and Nance plays 24 minutes of center, or Drummond turns an ankle, or they just decide they don't like Drummond again, or his calf flares back up. Now, he's not on the injury report after being on the injury report with that calf injury for the better part of 2 weeks. So, go with God. But so can you? Yes. Obviously, I can conceive of many game scenarios where Drummond gets 60 and Nance gets 50. So, yes, you can. With so many good plays, it's not somewhere I would get to very quickly. Easiest way I can explain.
All right. I suppose I should probably make a crunch, huh?
If you have things to enter, you should enter them. Yes.
I played everybody in the 8 o'clock game, so worst case scenario, I'm still alive.
Want me to find myself some questions?
Much like Pearl Jam. If you could play some Finding Pearl Jam music.
Let's
single
entry GPP though. Terrence Ross, FanDuel, cash. I don't really want to cash in that matchup. I suspect, again, Damian Lee is going to be similar and a little better, and I think same position. Like, there's just other guys that feel a little better for me than Terrence Ross and cash. Terrence Ross, and what's not an ideal matchup with the Memphis team that's playing a little slower and playing a little better defense. Not somewhere where I'm trying to go in cash. Do I like Jerome Robinson? I suspect I like Jerome Robinson quite a bit in GPPs. Matchup's very good. They've shown a willingness to give him, 35 minutes at times. So it would probably be just tournaments for me. Because there's just better cash value. But due to his ownership, due to his injury status, I imagine his ownership is a little lower than it should be in a vacuum. So I would like getting to some, not a priority. For FanDuel GPPs, does it make sense to pay down it? That's the question you read to me already. Beal and Reggie Jackson or White and Kemba DK GPP. I would probably play Kobe and Kemba more often than not. We did that. Vucevic, Drummond, and FanDuel cash. That would still be Drummond for me. Troy Brown or Morris for the Lakers on Troy Brown or Morris of the Lakers on FanDuel. I still can't give. It'd still be Troy Brown for me pretty easily. I can't give Markieff enough time. He may get no extra time. I really don't know what they're going to do with the center minutes. Maybe those minutes go to Kuzma. Maybe those minutes go to Jared Dudley. I really don't know. Again, Dwight Howard played 6 and 10 minutes in the last 2 games. So I think overreacting with, oh my God, all the JaVale McGee, I would, based on what we know right now, I would rather Thomas Bryant. And I would rather, who's the other $3,800 cheap center? I would rather Wendell Carter Jr. That's just FanDuel, obviously, at that price. I would rather those guys than JaVale at this point. JaVale's fine, but we have him higher on than those other 2 guys. They'll project pretty close for me. Any amount of JaVale is reasonable. He probably plays around 20 minutes, and matchup is great. Any update on AD? Not that I've seen. Mitch Robinson news? Not that I've seen, although I'm looking at your chat. I should really go back to Slack because we're out of time here. So, and by that I mean projections. There, tweet deck, alerts. Sorry, I'm stopping with your questions and trying to make sure I'm not missing anything.
No, that's good.
Would you play Love and Drummond in a single entry on FanDuel? I'm fine doing it. I doubt that I would not intentionally do it. I wouldn't be like, I want to get both these guys in here. I would probably slightly rather play Love between the 2 of them at their ownership. But big fan of those guys, and I think you are locked.
We are just about locked.
Eddie
Ian Coleman wants to know, what am I doing the whole time Eddie is talking? Why am I not making lineups? It's 6:57. I'm looking at ownership. I'm looking at Twitter. I'm looking at all of your guys' questions and trying to find what good ones we should ask Eddie. I'm doing a variety of things except not making my lineups, which is why I set them for the late game. But if I'm able to have my fantasy cruncher set up, if I have my settings right, I'm tweaking our own ownership. Remember, those keep changing up until lock. These are all of the variables. So everything you guys are doing, I'm doing as well, but trying to do a show. So I give the show precedent until we get to those last few minutes, and then I try to get my lineups in. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. There we go.
Oh, it should be a decent daddy like. Get yourself downloaded.
Absolutely. No. And no, that was not making fun of you guys. It's a very fair question. I'd ask the same thing. What are you doing? Until you try to do all these things at once while you have money on the line.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm not playing. I'm not using a single lineup, and I don't have near enough time to talk about half the crap I want to talk about while looking at your questions in 3 chat sources and looking at Twitter and watching Twitter news and my Google alerts. I'm constantly chicken with my head cut off here. I can't imagine trying to crunch crap and get it in at the same time. So good luck to you.
Yeah. That's why I always, and that's why the host we take turns doing these later shows. I mean, I enjoy doing shows and all, but I like to play as well. Oh my God, what did DK had? They had $100,000 4-point play today. They didn't have, there we go. Of course they have the $15. 400,000. How much to first?
I'm gonna go with 100,000.
100,000, Eddie. It's like you're zeroed in on that. Downloading the export file.
Do it.
And again, we have lock for SuperDraft at 8. There are no more games until 8 o'clock. So you can play around with your lineups. You can do some changes. I would have punted on everything, but I wanted a bunch of Alfred Payton and Julius Randle. So that's why I wanted to get mine in. Now I can tweak accordingly after that. Who is the most popular player? And I did not have him on that many teams. Interesting.
See? You and the damn clues. Troy Brown.
You are correct.
Yeah. I think we had him in the mid-20s. That feels about right. I was at 22. A little under.
24.5.
Yeah. I do think that is significantly wrong. It's not that, and again, I really want to explain the concept, although I'm sure this is rote and boring to 99% of you, but to the other 1%, it's not that Troy Brown doesn't look like a great play at $3,700 against a moribund Knicks team where he should again see at least 28 minutes or something. He projects very nicely for like 25 fantasy points, and an upside of 35 wouldn't be crazy. It's just that it's not that much the hell better than 6 guys who are projected for 4% ownership. So play one of them instead, who will do worse 53% of the time, but be better for your lineup more often than not. I mean, duh, but I feel like I should say that about once a day.
Who is number 2? Interesting.
Do we have a third game? Wait,
we have 2. We have 2 games.
It's just the 2. It's just Knicks, Wizards, Celtics, Pacers.
Correct.
Okay. Well, nobody on the Celtics and Pacers was very good, so it's going to be a Knick or a Wizard.
How many do we have to go before we get a Celtics or Pacer? Will be the next question. I was about to
say, it's going to be how many? That's a good question. I will say that I'll go through the lineup, so I'll figure this out. So Troy, Randall, Payton, Bryant.
Yep.
Definitely. So those 4. I'm trying to think who's the best guy from the Celtics game. Is going to be like either Warren or Walker, I expect. So I'll say the 6th person is the highest person on the list from the slow game.
You are correct.
It's the 6th?
It is the 6th.
Good shit. All right, and so 4 of the ones above it are Brown, Payton, Randall, and
You
Bryant.
are correct.
Who the hell is the last one?
Sakura.
Hachimura.
The cherry blossoms in Washington this time of year are lovely.
Yeah, no, very nice. I had a lovely cherry tree in front of my house in upstate New York. It was really, really pretty. I missed that tree. We almost dug it up and took the tree. The chrysanthemum and the sword, I say. I would have. How owned is he?
Let's see. Julius is 22.5. Elf is 15.6. I've doubled both of them. Thomas Bryant is 9.9. Rui is 9.3. TJ Warren, 5.8. Brad Beal, 5.7. Napier, 5.7. So, I mean, Warren was statistically tied with those guys. Jerome Robinson, 5.4.
Brad Beal, 5.7, huh? Wow.
Yep. Miles Turner, 5.3. Sabonis, 5.3. Bertans, 4.4. Then everybody's just scrubby.
LeBron is probably playing. I would say LeBron is 95%. They let out that he's probably playing, but I don't think we've actually seen Will play from an official source. I could be wrong. I could have missed it. During the show, I start to miss news and rely on the chat to get me.
On Mahimny?
Yeah, I think
he's active, right?
I think Shabazz Napier is going a little under-owned. Do you had him at 5-something?
5.3, I think it was.
That's a very good matchup, and he's the only guy they want playing point guard on that team. Stop. So Like they've shown they were going to give him 40 minutes. One game he missed because he got elbowed in the face. One got like, so I do think the people in chat who are guessing that.
One lineup with John Wall today.
John Wall, way to go.
Admiral Schofield.
We still didn't get Mitch Robinson news?
Isaac Bonga. No, he is 1.1% owned. I didn't see anything on him. No, there is actually not Mitch Robinson news. I'm looking at.
That's odd, as the game should have tipped 6 minutes.
Schmancy Fabs. I forget what Spax calls it.
Schmendrick?
There's somebody asked him 11 minutes ago, and they said, nope, nothing has been reported yet.
So someone just sent me a tweet like, Eddie low-key flexing, drinking his muscle milk. Right. That was really funny. Someone a minute ago also said, Eddie, change your damn shirt. I do change my shirt. I do not always change my sweater. It is cold down here in the basement, so I frequently pull on the same over top. But thank you, those guys who are observing my beverages of choice. And it's hard. Like, look, a body like this. Look at this. Look at the mass. Let me pull the shirt tight there. This is a bicep. It's not a pipe cleaner. That doesn't come easy. It requires sacrifice. Sleepless nights, waking up sore every day, living in the gym. But anyway, you got to drink that stuff that tastes like chalk, more or less.
Hey, Awesemo.com just went live.
Awesemo.com just went live?
According to my Twitter, to my Twitch alerts.
Eddie is a frat boy punk.
I hope people have seen us. All right, well, let's get on over here to SuperDraft.
Am I frat boy? I've never been called frat boy.
Eddie's like the farthest thing from a frat.
Am I a frat boy? Punk is fine. I'm a real bitch. That's fine. I am a punk.
1,900 spots available for all you punks out there for SuperDraft. $36,000 contest tonight. We're going to talk about it for the next 20 minutes or so.
Let's do it.
They go live at 8 o'clock. So you will still have time after we get off the air because the next games do not start until 8 o'clock. We don't have a Dallas lineup yet, so that will be coming out at some point. Let's see here, Eddie. Do you want to compare your top SuperDraft plays with Alex Baker's top SuperDraft plays?
Absolutely.
Let me go over there. And one of my 3 recommended SuperDraft plays apparently is sick tonight and not playing. That would be Steph Curry.
Yeah.
It's always hard when you have to write.
Influenza, by the way, not illness. Not the flu. No. This is Steph Curry. This is Steph Curry. So on the injury report, Steph Curry, general, influenza.
We got to be specific these days. Well, that's another conversation for another time.
Influenza.
Which you and I tend to stumble into these during the shows anyway, so what else? I'm sorry, I'm calling up one Alex Baker's SuperDraft projections, but the reminder is if you sign up, use the promo code Awesemo, and when you make your first deposit, if it's $100 or more, they will give you $20 in super cash. That is the site currency. It is available for immediate use into any contest, and it will automatically come out first of your account when you enter into a contest.
Alex's top guy is not in my top 10, so some slight difference there. But that's cool.
All right. So Shaq Harrison, number 1 for the boss man. The reason he's number 1, a 1.95 multiplier. I believe that is the largest multiplier anybody has today. No, there are.
I'm sure someone has 2-0.
Mulder, Dellavedova,
I'm sure KZO Polka has 2-0.
No, I was listing the viable guys. Dellavedova, Michael Mulder, and Juan Toscano Anderson all have it. So they would be viable. That's Randall. Not that Randall. It's the other one.
Randall? Yeah, I get him.
Yeah. So number 1 is Shaq Harrison. You said no.
I think he's fine, but if especially because Alex is the GOAT and he's on the top of his rankings, the ownership is going to be significant. And again, I'm not secure with his role in the rotation, and it's still Shaq Harrison. Like it's fine, but if I expect him to be popular at somewhere, I would try to look other places because, let's see, Alex has him with a raw of 33. That's why we're different. I have him with a raw of about 28, and that does not quite crack my top 10. But yeah, I'm chalky Shaq Harrison should make your butt itch at least a little bit.
All right. Number 2, we have Paul George.
Yeah, 1.45. I have him at number 1.
Okay. That's actually a pretty good multiplier, even with the potential short time on the court. It actually is rather helpful because it is, 1.45, very, very big. So if he gets 40 fantasy points, which I think would be a reasonable baseline projection, not going to kill you, be among the leaders.
58.
That's how that works.
Did that math all in my head right there. Right in my head. Right in the old noodle.
We have James Harden next with no multiplier, coming in at 63.7 raw points. Remember, half point for three-pointer bonus. You get double-double and triple-double bonuses. Steals and blocks are worth 3 points.
That is correct. Oh, I have James Harden 2 spots lower, but let's see. Alex has him projected for 1.5 points higher than I do. So basically the same.
Somehow Anthony Davis gets a 1.15 multiplier, a 15% kicker on Davis. LeBron gets a 0.1 multiplier. Usually you don't see that with the superstars as often.
Nets too. By the way, Nets, what in the hell are you doing? This team is going to make the playoffs 2 years in a row, and they were not supposed to make the playoffs either year. I'm just saying. Kenny got run out of town by DeAndre Jordan and Kyrie, and I don't know what that crap was about. I know we're supposed to be talking SuperDraft, and I'll go right back to it now, but just for reference, I can't imagine that he wasn't forced out. Like, we'll say it's mutual, but like,
no, there's
playoffs 2 years in a row, very highly regarded, and gets Kyrie and Kevin Durant next year. I think I'm going to go now. I think I'm going to, this seems the time to go before I get those two guys. It seems unlikely. So.
And before we get another run at the playoffs and a playoff experience coaching.
They won a game last year. They won a game. Yeah. Everybody won a game last year. Orlando won a game. They both won game 1 and 2. Both Orlando and Brooklyn won the first game. It was like, oh, and then they both got swept. But it was pretty sexy there. Let me see other guys I like significantly more than this. I have Valanciunas a little higher. I just believe in the talent and the minutes a little more, I think. That's about the same. I have Westbrook a little higher. Again, I have him about 4 less than Harden. Alex has him about 7.5 less. So in this, we differ.
Still no news.
No, I don't play DFS, but I think you're trolling me because
you've answered that like every time.
I've answered that 3 shows in a row, and someone said, make sure to ask that to Eddie again tomorrow. So not unlike Emax Bofa. I will refuse to be drawn in by your clever ploy. Thomas Bryant playing mad.
Yeah.
Thomas Bryant.
Thomas Bryant, 4 points, 2 boards, and assists. No Thomas Bryant, no cash tonight. Slate broken.
Yeah, no.
It's over.
Completely.
Minute 55 in. It's over.
Game. That's in a minute 55? So that's a pretty good minute 55. 4, 2, and 1. It's 4 fantasy points a minute or something. He's on pace.
It must be Polish.
92 fantasy points.
It must be Polish Heritage Night, and he's channeling Marcin Gortat.
Yeah. Eddie, do I play lines? Do you mean like? I don't think I'm allowed to make that joke anymore. No, I build a couple lineups for the purpose of hosting the show. If I'm playing, I'm not hosting the show. If I'm hosting the show, I'm not playing.
All right, so back to our serious move here. 1,800 spots left. $12 to get in.
What is the exact numbers? Let's talk about overlay.
1,594 right now. The total is 3468.
So I think you're selling it short. I think you're burying the lead. I think you're doing a bad job of hosting because when you say 1,800 spots short, many of us have been trained up on FanDuel and Draftkings, where that sounds like it's 18,200 out of 20,000. It's half filled, EMAG.
Oh, okay.
It's under half filled. It's half empty. So it's 1,600 out of 3,468. That's more than half empty. So that's a lot of overlay. And overlay is the greatest of things in the world, other than a nice mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich when the mutton is nice and lean and the lettuce is crisp. Ooh, I love that.
Have fun storming the castle. Yes, it's 46.3% filled. So,
did you math that?
No, I don't do that like you do that.
No, but I mean, we went to a calculator to.
Well, it's calculated right on my computer.
No, I know, but my point is, no. I
have to do it. So here's why, and it's absolutely fair. So I used to ballpark stuff all the time when I was in accounting and finance because we were always doing forecasting.
Whoa.
I can't now that I'm in compensation because everybody wants to go to the decimals.
Oh my God. Sorry. I used to ballpark stuff when I was in accounting. That is awesome.
As soon as I said that, when I was in finance.
That is awesome. You were sitting next to Kevin on The Office? That was going on here? When I was in accounting, I used to just round shit, really, because, nobody cares. But now that I'm in DFS, I go down to the third decimal spot. I'm done. I'm sorry.
All right. The dude, here's what you should do is you should enter the nickel. You can put 150 lineups in. They're 5 cents a piece. That's $7.50. Show those people how to run 100 plus lineups. It's nice. Easy. You can just
you can't do it for long because there are only 413 spots left in the nickel. Yes. So 3 people could not do that, but 2 could.
Can I tell you how paper is made?
I'll tell you how I make
paper. Would you like
paper.
The Chinese version or would you like the Egyptian version?
Here's how paper is made. You find something, you're not what they're talking
Making
about.
Paper?
Kids don't call it paper anymore. Kids do not call it paper anymore.
Here, I have a bunch of them right there.
Jesus.
All right.
Kawhi style.
I'm waiting for a chat to say, where's my, if I stacked them all together, can I have a money phone? Hello. What is the SuperDraft promo code for deposit? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is Awesemo, all one word. So when you're creating your account, there'll be a little thing there that says referral or promo code. You type in Awesemo there, create your account, and then when you go to make your deposit, that will have been registered in there. And if you make it for $100, they will automatically know to give you $20 in super cash. If for whatever reason that does not work, you can reach out to their support, and they will double check and let you know. And they're very friendly with their support.
SuperDraft center tonight. Well, let me tell you.
That's actually a good question.
What a great question. It's it's very tight. If you have the opportunity and he is starting and he's there, I would play DeAndre Ayton. The best one I have projected and the best one Alex has projected very slightly is Vucevic. We both have slightly higher. But I would probably have Valanciunas in there for differentiation. And basketball is a very knowable sport and projections tend to be very, very close. If I compare my projections to Alex's, they're going to be off by an average of about 1%. If I compare my top of my head to Alex, it's going to be off by an average of about 3%. So people get a lot of the same numbers, and a lot of people are going to go into SuperDraft and they're going to go center. Let me pick the highest projected center. And for most systems, that is going to spit out Vooch. For me, I have him about 2.5 points higher. Alex has him at about a point over Naz Reid.
What do you have Joe Val with a 1.4 multiplier there?
Yeah. And then I would play Joe Val, who's projected a couple points less. And I think I'm a little more optimistic on the minutes and the projection. But long story short, I think I would specifically issue playing the top guy at a single slot position like center and just take someone I project for 3 less because I could expect reasonably, I think, projections to be fairly studiously and assiduously applied in this situation.
18-4 Wizards.
No.
Knicks are calling another timeout. Rui Hachimura just made a dunk from Bradley Beal.
Really?
Off of a bad Elfrid Payton pass, which Thomas Bryant stole.
I'm sure he didn't do anything else because Rui Hachimura doesn't do anything else. You want 18 points and 6.5 rebounds? He's your guy. You want, I don't know, any other statistics? Maybe not your guy.
All right. So
he's fine. He's young.
So that was your. We still don't know what's going on with Thomas Robinson. He comes off the bench, so he's on the bench. Someone nicely pointed out in our chat that he did look okay in warmups when they were watching the in stadium camera.
Yeah, I hate. That's why I hate doing the show because normally I'd be watching all that stuff. That's fun.
But then again, we've seen Joel Embiid go from wearing flip-flops to starting and from shoot around to not playing. So who knows?
I really liked Randall, who in fairness, I think we said was like 12 or 15% is all the way up at 22.5. He's not doing well. He's doing better than Elf. Randall has 2 points and a turnover. Not very
It's
good.
the
But
Wizards, people. We have
it's 4
plenty of
minutes.
time.
Give him time. It's 4 minutes. But Elf has 2 turnovers, and that's it. So the old 2 trillion sort of, or the old 2 trillionths.
All right. So back over here. I closed the wrong window. I have to make a little super. So you said you liked Vooch potentially, or you said the system would spit
I have
out
Vooch projected highest, as does Alex. For that reason, I don't like Vooch.
Gotcha.
Again, anyone who works here or works at SuperDraft who wants to just send me ownership in your biggest tournament every night, like a spreadsheet, I would read that shit and I would do a much better job at this portion of the show because I'd be able to understand how most people play it. I'm guessing most people play it and rely fairly heavily on projections. So if I have Valanciunas as the 4th highest projected center at 3 points less than the highest projected center, I'm generally going to want to play Valanciunas. Also, I think the ceiling is a little higher than Vooch. So, that's sort of that's what I'm thinking, and that's my reasoning.
Kobe White, 1.65 multiplier.
Rui has a rebound, 2 assists, and a block. It's like a month's worth of peripherals for him.
He doesn't like it when you talk
it is the Knicks, but his block rate for a power forward is, you may have the worst block rate of a man his size in the league. There's a chance. I honestly think Rui Hachimura has... I'm going to take a guess at Rui Hachimura's blocks this year. I think he's played something to the order of 40 to 45 games. I will guess on this season, Rui Hachimura has...
Mitch Robinson checking in.
There you go. Check again. I'll guess Rui Hachimura has 7 blocks this year.
Rui Hachimura
I'm giving him 1 per 6 games.
You're giving him too much credit, Eddie.
Less. So,
he has 5.
He has 5 blocks.
5 through 40 games.
Yes, for a starting power forward, that's not extremely
averaging good. 30 minutes per game.
Per 36 of, if I'm doing that right, that's 0.125 per 30 minutes. So we can tack on an additional 5th to get to 36. He's got a per 36 of 0.15 blocks. So yeah, he does not get blocks a lot. So well done if you got your Rui Hachimura block for the year. Frank comes in and bangs a 3. They did remove one of Elf's turnovers, by the way. Thomas Bryant, by the way, 15.5 fantasy points, bangs a 3.
Would Yahoo, Shetty Osman or Shaq Harrison same price?
Shaq in any sort of cashy context, and I mean, I would have him projected higher by like 6. I think I have him well higher. I don't mind Chetty. Chetty's usable, but he's a GPP pivot with the understanding that you're going to outscore him 1 time in 5 or something. Bryant's always hit 3s. Thomas Bryant's always taken bang, usually corners.
Yeah, even with the Lakers days.
Yeah, he makes 3s.
We're almost at 1,700, but that's still not half full for SuperDraft, guys.
Okay. Didn't even have to get your calculator out.
Yes, I'm spitballing it. I'm swagging.
Nice.
Check out my swag.
Big play. Down by your knees.
I don't see anybody good. Eric Pascal at 1.7. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I can get behind that. That's not bad. Let me look at some other guys I would specifically mention. I think like carrying upside.
Larry Nance at 1.45 with Drummond. Oh, Robert Covington at 1.5. He's in.
Yeah, I like that. Kevin Love at 1.35. I have Kevin. Again, my Kevin Love projection is fairly crazy. Raw points projection, I have Kevin Love at 45 and a little. Alex has him at 38. That is a Grand Canyon of a difference in projections. I factor in a number of things like, defensive schemes, but the minutes are up there. So I'm giving him a few more minutes, I'm sure. And I especially like the system for him, but so, Alex has Kevin Love as his like 23rd or something super draft play. He's my 7th.
I'm going with Alex. I'm going with Hassan Whiteside as my center tonight. 1.1 multiplier. I don't think people are going there.
No, I'm fine. No issue with that.
I've got a little Rubio and a little Booker on the same
for
thing.
50. So that's looking at, 55 for just
the dude. Draft. Thank you. 48.823% full. You are correct, sir. Or you were when you ran your calculator.
Nice job.
You need that accuracy. I can't keep swagging these things. Let us see here. We'll go for about another 5 minutes or so, gamers.
Okay. Oh, that's right. That doesn't lock for a half hour. You
half hour.
We're not staying the whole time.
No, it's a long time. It's a long time. Well, my wife was out in your state this weekend, and she got back.
Was she shot?
She was not. She was there to watch a dance recital.
I'm going to retweet this guy who sent me a clown face. Good call on Randall, Fast Eddie Fear, and misspelled Randall. We're just going to let that guy speak for himself. You got me. That call was not good for the first 4 minutes. Thank you for your contribution.
Oh, God, it's people.
Clown face that makes it hard.
People. Let's go down and see Aaron Gordon in SuperDraft tonight, 1.35. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like quite a bit. I think I had him in the teens. 16. I like him quite a bit. I think you can get
Closing out fantasy snubs. We're just about to break half full here, but the more
important, have a half hour.
We do have a half hour. There's time, but remember, there's a very good chance there's going to be some overlay. People start going to dinner. People not really paying attention here. That's a long time, but it's usually more full than this. It's also usually not as large as this, and it's also usually not an hour after lock. It's usually 30 minutes after lock. So if people start, getting into their evening or doing other stuff, they may not circle back here. So I would think somewhere around 3,100 would feel about appropriately. Maybe they crack 3,000 tonight. So that would still be room in the contest, and almost overlay. Definitely rake free. There will be reduced rake. How's that?
Yeah. And please, everyone, accept my profound apologies for the poor 6 minutes Julius Randle played.
Why didn't you go with Bryant?
In fairness, it's sometimes funny for me, like when the guy does it less than halfway through the first quarter and spells the guy's name wrong. Like it's sometimes it's kind of funny in that way, but it usually doesn't bother me because there's literally people are very nice. I get like 10 nice tweets for every one mean tweet. So the one mean guy I usually feel sorry for. I'm like, oh, who hurt you? What happened to you where halfway through the first quarter you feel the need to like, I've got to express my rage at that guy who liked 40 players that one of them didn't do well through 3 minutes. Like, who hurt you?
Bobby Portis feeling a little bit of revenge.
Give us a hug. Yeah, that was a real thing, by the way. I don't know. You remember his first couple games after he got off the Bulls. He put his thing down quite a bit. So
yeah, he's not happy with the Wizards either. Frankie Ntilikina, 6 points.
Yeah, not good for
Marcus Robinson did get a foul. Congratulations.
Marcus Robinson?
Sorry, Mitchell Robinson.
But
they were asking me LaMarcus Aldridge.
If he's playing, he's going to get a foul.
Or what is DeMar DeRozan's nickname?
Double D's?
Double D's nuts!
Yeah, I beat you, though. I already did it because I know it was coming. Because I can't not answer your question. I had it, but those... I did this right before I started.
I know. It's not even close. That's the safe word, if you will, Eddie. That's
That's good. But nice segue still strong segue.
So they were asking about both of them on SuperDraft. Both of them on SuperDraft.
It's a plague.
No, but seriously, they would like your thoughts.
On
that was an actual question. LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan on SuperDraft tonight.
I don't think I have either one in my top 30 or so. I really worry about that team with, let me see where I have them. I have
promo code Awesemo is what
I have Aldridge 25th, and I have DeRozan 23rd. So they both sneak into my top 20. I have them both with modified scores in the low 50s. I'm fine. Again, the matchup is nominally a good one. The minutes could be kind of limited on Aldridge. I don't know. DeRozan, you like to pick up some extra usage with no DeJounte Murray there. So if I'm building 10 lineups, I don't think I get to one. If I'm building 15, there probably start showing up with one of each of them. So I can see getting to either of those guys. And as far as that, I'm trying to see if I ranked anyone else fairly high on the Spurs. Nope. DeRozan and Aldridge were the only Spurs I had in the top 35, and then you get down to Derek White at a 1.7, who's not really in play but close.
All right. Hang on. What do you think Gordon Hayward has done when he's been visiting in Indiana, his birthplace?
I hear he's having a good game. It was a good price on FanDuel. DK is a little more expensive than I wanted to play, but FanDuel especially would have been. I think I would have still preferred $6,700 Kemba, but he'd have been my second Celtic on FanDuel, then Smart, then Tatum.
All right. So here are. All right, so for those of you saying we missed the narratives, I want to read you. These are the DK points. Here's his Boston DK points: 13, 30, 20, 27, 22. Okay, maybe that's not great. He has top 40 fantasy points twice when he visited there while playing with Utah in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games.
I don't think
there's nothing there.
I don't think they're seriously saying you're missing it, or if they are, then
no, they tweeted me, and it's Renpeck. Well, it was Renpeck was the other one. No, it's Moses Guthrie. He's one of our biggest fans. I think he's just trying to get back up.
Yeah, he's taking the piss. Guys like having fun. Oh, and I give people attention for sending me dumb tweets. The number of dumb tweets ratchets up. People are like, "Oh, you think that was dumb?" Boom, and just like all kinds of. It's fun. You can't dig into it seriously.
All right, one last thought and circling back here on the old SuperDraft, up to 1900. Again, I think we got 28 minutes. I think it'll get up to about 3100 is my guess. There should be a little bit of room in it. I definitely think it's worth your while to play in games where you don't have to end up paying a rake. Remember how excited we got when Yahoo would run the rake free contests. That's basically what you're getting with this.
3,100 is more than rake free, right? It's $12 entry, 36 in prizes.
Yes.
Okay, so
7,000 to first.
So that'd be small amounts of rake. That'd be a little bit of rake, but still. Right? Am I confusing myself? 12 times 3,100 be 3,000, 37,200. So there'd be a very small amount of rake. Very nice.
Not bad at all.
You'd like my opinion on MJ versus LeBron?
One is the greatest player of all time, and the other was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
it really depends how you're asking the question. Like, I think Michael Jordan is pretty clearly the greatest basketball player of all time. I think if you ignore drive and achievement and purely rank them on their suite of basketball skills, how good they are at every facet of the game, I think LeBron is probably more talented. I think LeBron is a much better rebounder at their peak. They were both roughly insanely good defenders. LeBron is a better shooter from some ranges. LeBron is a slightly better passer. It's close to me. So I think Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time. I think if you distilled them down into all the different ways they play basketball, LeBron probably has more talent than Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player of all time. It's similar to being like, Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player of all time. Barry Bonds is a better baseball player. He's just better playing baseball. But Babe Ruth is the greatest of all time. So Michael Jordan is the GOAT. LeBron probably has a better all-around skill set. Couple inches taller, 40 pounds heavier, not 40 pounds heavier, but 25 pounds heavier. So yeah.
All right. Last tour of SuperDraft, because people were asking, can we give out some more SuperDraft plays? So here is my lineup that I have in there. I've got Booker and Rubio at guards and Whiteside. So kind of guys from that game. My forwards are Covington, Eric Pascal, and Kevin Love. And then I'm debating on what I want to do with Kobe White. He does have a 1.65 multiplier.
I like him a lot. He's in my top 10.
Comes in as one of Alex's top 10 players. And I don't know where the ownership is going to be. I suspect he will be quite popular, but I'm not really seeing any other guard that really stands out for me. If Luka did not have a sore wrist, I may go there. You do have D'Angelo Russell as an interesting pivot at 1.3. Multiplier. And then the other guy that was on my short list was Colin Sexton at 1.4, playing insane minutes. So they're in the same game together, Eddie. If you were just playing one, would you go with Colin Sexton at 1.4 or Kobe White making his first start of his rookie season at 1.65?
I'd go with Kobe White. I believe in that defensive backcourt for Chicago, as I've mentioned some 10,000 times. So I would rather go with the bigs from Cleveland and go with the guards from Chicago as a rough approximation.
Kobe White or Ricky Rubio? I'm playing both, but Aaron Choi would like to know if you were playing just one.
I would probably play Rubio because I think he's lower owned, and I have them projected pretty darn close to each other. I think I have Kobe for about 3 more. I have him for 3.5 more. Alex has him for about 5 more. So that's close. At that point, I might have to stick with Kobe, but that's just a risk tolerance choice.
All right. And then last one, this is not Super Draft. This is just a Orlando Magic guards question. Michael Carter-Williams or DJ Augustine. I'm not the only one that automatically puts the E on the end of DJ Augustine. I've seen like 4 questions over our last 2 shows that have done that. I'm like, see, it's not just me.
You're too much of the saint. I would rather play DJA than MCW. I'd rather play DJ Augustine.
All right. With that, hopefully our producer is hanging around so he can get us on out of here. I know he is.
If not, you're staying till late. See?
If not, we're staying till late. So we will find out. But you can follow Fast Eddie on Twitter at Fast Eddie Fair. I am at EMAC DFS. And hit that subscribe over there on Yahoo. When we get to 30,000 subscribers, and we are not that far off, we're going to do a big giveaway. So you'll want to check that out. With that, gamers, good luck.